All right, buckle up because today we're diving headfirst into the world of Alien. Isolation, specifically, that nerve wracking first mission, closing the book. And trust me, we're not just skimming the surface here. We're going deep into the design choices, the atmosphere, everything that makes this intro such a masterclass in suspense. Whether you've already braved this game or just curious about what makes great horror ticks stick with us, you're about to learn how Alien Isolation gets under your skin before you even see the monster.
Yeah, it's amazing how they pull you into this world. It's not just bam, you're in the action. It's 2137, 15 years after the first Alien film, and you're Amanda Ripley searching desperately for answers about what happened to her mother Ellen.
Right, and think about it. They could have set this anywhere, anytime, but they chose to directly link it back to the first film. It's like stepping right back into that iconic universe, all the grit, that 70s inspired futurism, but with modern technology making it feel real and terrifying.
Exactly, it's deliberate. They're tapping into that existing nostalgia, and let's be real, the dread we all feel when we think about that original Alien. So Creative Assembly, the developers, they set the tone immediately.
Yeah.
And that visual style of the torn space station, all bulky tech and those claustrophobic, dimly lit corridors, that's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Oh, absolutely. It's like every shadow, every corner is hiding something waiting to jump out.
Exactly. It's the environment telling a story before a word is even spoken. Those flickering lights, the grime on the walls, the constant hum of machinery, it all screams potential danger lurking just out of sight.
It's like the game saying, yeah, everything seems okay now, but just you wait. And speaking of things not being what they seem, let's talk about the characters we meet right off the bat. Samuels, the android, and Taylor, that Weyland-Yutani executive. They're more than just quest givers, right? They're something off about them from the start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their dialogue is so well layered. On the surface, it's just exposition moving the plot along. But listen closely, and you start to pick up on this underlying tension, those hesitant pauses, the way they phrase things. It's like they're hiding something huge. It makes you question everything they say and every motive they have.
It's like that feeling you get when you can just tell someone's not telling you everything in a conversation. You know what I mean? And that just makes you pay attention even more to every single word they say.
You got it. And that's what makes the story even more impactful later on. Even if you don't realize it, you're already forming opinions about these people, creating relationships with them. It's subtle, but it makes their fates and how you interact with them down the line so much more meaningful.
And here's where Alien Isolation really throws you for a loop. You go in expecting to be running from a xenomorph right out of the gate. But mission one, it's like this slow burn, almost like a thriller, building the tension.
Exactly. And that's a really smart move by the developers. I mean, they could have just thrown us to the alien right away. But instead, they give you this feeling of vulnerability through how you actually play the game. Take the crafting system, for example. Right from the start, you're scavenging for parts, trying to figure out how to make things.
Yeah, you're not just finding a med kit all put together. It's like, okay, what can I use to make something useful out of all this junk?
Yeah. And the game doesn't hold your hand either. You have to experiment, see what works. It makes you feel like you're actually surviving, not just following a script.
Absolutely. And that makes every single decision so much more important. Like, do I use this stuff now or save it for later? What if I really need it then? It's stressful even when there's no alien chasing you.
Right, because that's the thing about real fear. It's not just about being chased. It's the waiting, the not knowing what's going to happen. And Alien, Isolation, they absolutely nail that feeling.
Yeah.
Every little sound, every time the lights flicker makes you think, is that it? Is this when it gets me?
It's like the game is messing with your head on purpose, playing on that fear of the unknown. It's like being hunted even when you can't see the predator.
Totally. And they play with your expectations so well.
Yeah.
You're just waiting for that alien to show up. But it never does in Mission 1, at least not directly. Instead, you get these glimpses, shadows, sounds, things that could be the alien, or maybe it's just your imagination.
It's like the game is whispering to you the whole time, is that it? Is it coming for you now?
Which brings us to that ending when you think you're finally safe, about to escape the station, and boom.
That explosion. Talk about a punch to the gut. Just when you think you're in the clear, the game throws another curveball. What even caused that? Was it the alien? Are those people we met even still alive?
And suddenly everything from that first mission, all those little creepy moments, they all make sense.
Right. It's like all the pieces clicking into place, but in like the creepiest way possible. It really makes you realize every time the lights flickered, every weird sound the station made, it could have been the alien messing with you the whole time.
It's wild how they create that much dread without even really showing you the monster for that whole first mission.
That's the thing, isn't it? Real terror isn't about being chased down a hallway.
Nope. It's knowing you're stuck in a trap, but you have no idea how big that trap really is or when it's going to spring.
And Alien, Isolation nails that feeling from the very beginning.
They really do. It's
Ah.
psychological horror at its finest.
Yeah.
Every shadow, every sound makes you second guess yourself.
Like we were talking about before, true fear is that anticipation of the unknown, and they captured it perfectly.
Totally. It's what makes this game stand out from all those other horror games out there. It's not about jump scares. It's about creating an atmosphere that sticks with you long after you've put the controller down.
So for anyone listening who hasn't taken the plunge into Alien Isolation yet, what's the biggest takeaway from this deep dive into Mission 1?
Don't underestimate the power of a slow burn. That first mission, closing the book, it's a masterclass in how to tell a story, how to use the environment to scare you, and how to build suspense.
Exactly. Reminds us that the things we don't see can be way more terrifying than anything a developer can throw on the screen.
It lets your imagination fill in those blanks in the darkest corners of that space station.
And on that chilling note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Alien Isolation. Until next time, keep exploring those dark corners and remember sometimes the quietest moments are the most terrifying. All right, so you want to take a crack at Alien Isolation, huh? I'll strap in because this deep dive is going to get us both in the mood for some serious space horror. Mission 2, let's break it down.
Smart move, requesting this one, by the way. Mission 2, it's not just a level, it's like the game grabs you by the collar and says, this is what you're in for.
Yeah, I can already tell this is going to be good. So our listener is about to step into Amanda Ripley's shoes, right? What's the situation? Hit me with the setup.
Okay, so picture this. You're Amanda, fresh off the events of Mission 1, things went really sideways,
Yeah.
and now you're stranded.
Stranded, like lost in the woods stranded or stranded in deep space stranded?
Deep space stranded.
Yeah.
On Sevastopol Station. Think, massive, crumbling, and did I mention you're completely alone?
Oh, come on, alone. With a track record like the Ripley family, that's basically asking for trouble.
Whoa, you're not wrong. But that feeling of isolation, it's intentional. It's brilliant game design. See Sevastopol. It's more than just a setting.
Okay, I was just thinking, space station, kind of cool, but now you've got me intrigued. More than a setting, how so?
It's like environmental storytelling on steroids. Everything, the flickering lights, the echoing corridors, it whispers a history of chaos. You can practically feel the panic that happened there.
Oh, chills, literal chills. I love that stuff. It's like those creepy Polaroids you find in horror movies, right? You know something awful went down.
Exactly. That's what the game nails perfectly. Like,
Yeah.
you stumble across these desperate messages scrawled on the walls, or find a room, door busted open. You know something bad went down, but you don't know what. It messes with your head.
And speaking of messing with your head, what about the other inhabitants of Sevastopol? We're not alone, right?
That's where the fun begins. You'll bump into a handful of survivors. Axel, for example. He's seen things, clearly traumatized. But is he trustworthy? Who knows?
Oh man, that's the worst. Like, who do you trust when everyone's a potential suspect? You know that classic horror trope. You see someone, think they're gonna help, bam, they turn on you.
Exactly. And it keeps you on edge the entire time. But here's the kicker. It's not just the humans you have to worry about. Because guess who else decided to call Sevastopol home?
Oh no, don't tell me. Not the
Xenomorph.
You're kidding me. Right off the bat, talk about jumping into the deep end. All right, listener, buckle up because things are about to get real. Okay, hold up a sec. A xenomorph. Seriously, they're not wasting any time, are they?
Nope. And that's the beauty of it. Mission 2 isn't just about atmosphere, it's about teaching you how to survive. Think of it like a crash course in Xenomorph 101.
But subtle, right. I mean, they're not just going to pop up a tutorial screen and be like, press X to not die.
Exactly. It's all about learning by doing.
Yeah.
You're figuring out the mechanics, scavenging for resources, all while this constant threat is looming.
Oh man, I can feel the tension already. It's like, here's a wrench, kid. Now try not to get eaten by the space monster.
And that's what makes this game so unique. It's not about running and gunning. You need to be smart, resourceful, use the environment to your advantage.
Yeah, because going toe-to-toe with a xenomorph, not exactly a winning strategy.
Exactly. This game is about anticipation, about that constant fear of where is it? What was that sound? Gets under your skin.
See, that's the stuff I love. That feeling of vulnerability. It's way more terrifying than any jump scare. It's like In Alien, that scene where Dallas is in the vents, just hearing those clinks and hisses, you're basically crawling through the vents with him.
And that's what Alien Isolation does so well. It puts you right there with Amanda. You're feeling her fear, her desperation.
Yeah.
You become her.
So how does Mission 2 actually prepare you for that? What's the learning curve like?
It teaches you the rules of this world. You learn to fear every sound, every shadow. Most importantly, you learn that direct confrontation. Bad idea.
Right. It's like that old saying, discretion is the better part of valor, only here it's more like discretion is the only thing keeping you alive.
And don't forget the xenomorph. It learns. So the more predictable you are, the easier you are to hunt.
Oh man, that just adds a whole other level of stress. So it's not just about learning the environment, it's about staying one step ahead of, well, a highly evolved alien killing machine. No pressure. Okay, so let's bring this back around. Our listener, they're about to fire up Mission 3. What's going through their head after that Mission 2 roller coaster?
I think, well, if they're anything like me, it's that feeling of, I'm not in Kansas anymore. The game's got its hooks in you, you know?
Yeah, totally. You're past the setup. Sevastopol isn't just spooky, it's straight up menacing.
And smart design there, it mirrors Amanda's journey. She's not just figuring out the station, she's coming to grips with the danger.
And let's be real, knowing the xenomorph is out there, that changes every decision, right?
Absolutely. It's like the game saying, have fun with that flickering light, by the way, it might be your last.
Brutal. But effective, I bet. So, our listener, they're about to jump into this terrifying world. What's the one thing, the big takeaway they should keep in mind?
Honestly. Remember that feeling we talked about, being vulnerable? Lean into it. That's where Alien Isolation shines.
You mean like, don't expect to be a badass space marine right out the gate?
Exactly. This game. It's about outsmarting, not overpowering. It's about the fear, the tension. Those are the rewards.
And on that note, I think we've given our listener plenty to chew on, this deep dive. It's just the beginning, their journey. It's about to get real. Thanks for joining us. And listener, good luck out there in the depths of Sevastopol. You're going to need it. All right, strap in, everyone, because this deep dive is gonna get intense.
Buckle up is more like it.
Haha, right. We're headed back into the claustrophobic hell of Sevastopol Station, specifically Mission 3 of Alien Isolation.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is where the training wheels come off, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. If you thought surviving those working Joes was tough, just wait.
You've seen the xenomorph glimpses, you've heard the roars, now it's hunting season.
And guess who's the prey? Our girl, Amanda Ripley, still desperately trying to reach her ship, the Torrens.
Which, on paper, sounds simple enough, right? Contact your ship, get rescued. Classic video game objective.
Except this is Alien Isolation. They've got a way of making the straightforward terrifying.
It's the atmosphere, right? It shifts dramatically in Mission 3.
Big time. Remember those larger areas in the earlier parts of the game? Where you had a little bit of breathing room?
Yeah, say goodbye to those. Mission 3 is all about tight corridors, cramped vents, and this ever-present feeling that something is watching you.
Because something is, and it's not afraid of the dark.
Exactly. The level design really emphasizes that feeling of vulnerability. Every corner you turn could be a death trap.
Not to mention, the alien AI is much more aggressive now. It's not just reacting to you anymore, it's actively hunting you.
It learns your patterns, too. You try hiding in the same spot twice. Good luck with that.
Yeah, no more predictable patrol routes like those working Joes. This is a whole new ballgame. So how does Amanda deal with this escalating nightmare?
Well, she's got a few new tricks up her sleeve. Or rather, in her hands.
Right. The motion tracker. Honestly, iconic piece of tech in horror, but man, when you're the one holding it and those beeps start getting closer.
It's pure tension. Yeah, it gives you just enough information to be terrified, but not enough to feel safe.
I can practically hear it now. Beep, 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 beep.
And it forces you to think differently about your surroundings. Suddenly, that locker isn't just a place to stash loot, it's a potential hiding spot.
Or that table you can squeeze under. Anything to get out of sight, even for a second.
And this is where the crafting system becomes crucial. Remember all those scraps you were hoarding?
Yeah, I was never sure what I was saving them for, to be honest.
Now you know. Pipe bombs, noisemakers, anything to distract or slow down the alien becomes a lifeline.
Because one wrong move, and it's game over.
Pretty much. But even beyond the gameplay mechanics, it's the sound design in this mission that really gets me.
Oh, tell me about it. It's not even the jump scares, it's the subtler stuff.
Exactly. The creaking metal, the distant hiss of steam, that almost inaudible scuttling sound coming from the vents.
It's like the game is playing with your primal fears, the fear of the unknown, the dark.
Masterful use of audio cues to keep you constantly on edge. You never truly feel safe, even when you're alone.
Which, let's be honest, is never for very long in Mission 3.
Nope. And just when you think it can't get any worse, Amanda finally catches a break.
She manages to get a message through to the Taurens. Talk about a relief.
Right, but remember what I said about alien, isolation, and yanking that rug out from under you?
Don't remind me. It's fleeting, that contact. And what little she learns makes everything 10 times worse.
And on that happy note,
They leave you hanging, desperate to know what happens next.
classic cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But effective, right? Makes you want to dive right back into Mission 4.
Absolutely. Now, we could go on and on about Mission 3, the lighting, the environmental storytelling, but we'll save that for another deep dive.
Plenty more to unpack there.
For sure. But here's something to chew on in the meantime. After all she's seen, all she's been through, could Amanda Ripley ever truly feel safe again, even if she escapes Sevastopol? Let us know what you think.
Until next time.
See you in the next deep dive.
All right, so we're back, plunging headfirst back into Alien. Isolation. This time we're tackling Mission 4, Siegs in Communications. And if you've been with us from the start, through the medical bay, that whole motion tracker nightmare,
Yeah.
well, you know this game pulls no punches.
No, and it doesn't.
But before we get into the really intense stuff, how about we set the scene a bit? For anyone just joining us, catching up on the story so far, we're talking Amanda Ripley, of course, still stuck on that doomed Sevastopol station.
Right.
Her main goal in this mission, establish some kind of contact with a ship, the Torrens.
Yeah, the Torners.
Basically, it's her only shot at escaping this whole mess.
Yeah, and this is where the game really gets you, I think. Everyone's felt that, right? That flicker of hope when you're in a bad situation.
Oh, for sure.
You're stranded, danger everywhere, and then suddenly, bam, this chance of rescue. It's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. Though, as if just dealing with the alien constantly breathing down your neck wasn't bad enough, Mission 4 adds another lovely element to the mix.
Oh.
The working Joes. Gotta say, those things still give me the creeps.
Yeah, the Joes are something else. Even compared to other androids you see in the alien universe, they just hit different.
Right, like, talk about your uncanny valley, but times 100. Those eyes, that glow, and the skin, almost too smooth, It's unsettling on a whole other level.
It really is. And you know what makes them even more effective? They're unpredictable. You'll see some just going about their business like you're not even there. But then there are others,
Yeah,
instantly aggressive. You just don't know what you're going to get until it's too late.
makes you way more tense than the alien ever could.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of learn the alien's patterns after a while, but the Joes, it's a dice roll every encounter.
And that taps into something really primal, don't you think? That fear of the unknown, always on edge. From a horror game standpoint, genius.
Couldn't agree more. Though you know what else I find interesting about this mission? It's not all just like running and hiding. You actually get to use your brain a little, which is a nice change.
You're talking about where they bring in the hacking and those puzzle bits.
Right, exactly. All of a sudden, pull out your access tuner, bypass systems, solve these really intricate puzzles to get doors open. Feels like a whole different game inside the main one, almost.
Yeah, and I love that about it. It's like a little mental break from all that sneaking around, all the tension. Plus, it lets different players shine, Some people, they're all about that chase, the adrenaline. But others, they thrive on a good puzzle. Mission 4, it manages to cater to both.
Totally. It's like they're saying, okay, enough cardio, time for a different kind of stress test. Because honestly, rewiring a door while that alien could be right around the corner, whole other level of tense.
No kidding, like you said, immersive. But speaking of which, can we talk about the look of this mission for a sec? The communications hub. Even when it's scaring me silly, it's gorgeous.
Oh, absolutely. Visually, they nailed it. The atmosphere is incredible.
Right. Those corridors, barely any light, you just trudge through, feeling so alone, manages to be beautiful and terrifying all at once. Exactly. And it all goes back to what Alien, isolation does best, that whole vibe. vastness of space, something lurking just out of sight, how isolated you are, really drives home how vulnerable Amanda is in this whole thing.
And just when you think maybe, just maybe, you've got a handle on things, like you might actually survive this,
Right.
bam, mission throws its biggest curveball yet.
It's that calm before the storm everyone always talks about, right?
You said it. Amanda finally gets in contact with that ship, the Torrance. Huge moment, right? Like a beacon of hope in this whole nightmare.
Except,
That's when it all goes sideways.
understatement, alarms are going off, the alien's on your tail, and as if that wasn't bad enough, now you've got those Joes in the mix too. Total chaos.
See, and that's what makes this part so good, so intense, so well designed, forces you to use everything you've learned up to that point.
Oh, yeah. Your stealth, how to use what little you find, figuring out how the alien acts, even the puzzles, it all ties back in.
Like the game just throws it all at you, everything in the kitchen sink.
No kidding. And that's where, I don't know, your instincts got to take over. No time to hesitate or wonder what to do, just pure survival mode.
But man, it's exhilarating though, right? In a terrifying, I almost died kind of way.
Oh, for sure.
You really feel like you're in Amanda's shoes there, just fighting to stay alive.
And that's what Alien Isolation just nails. It's not about cheap scares or how much blood they can splatter around. It gets under your skin, you know, makes you feel that tension, that dread, like you're really there.
100%. So, summing it all up, Mission 4, it's this crazy mix of sneaking around those puzzles, then bam, all hell breaks loose, and it's all happening in this amazingly well-designed place.
Yeah, it shows you how a game, even a scary one, can tell a story, make you feel something real. You're not just watching Amanda go through it. You are her in that moment.
Absolutely. And honestly, what gets me most is it makes you think, if this is just one mission out of how many, what else is waiting for her on that station?
The question everyone's asking by that point, right?
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of it, I think. It doesn't give you all the answers, leaves you wanting more. You finish a section like that, heart's still pounding, but you can't wait to see what's next.
For real. So until next time, everyone keep those motion trackers handy, try to get some sleep if you can, and we'll be back soon to dive even deeper into the nightmare that is Alien. Isolation.
Hello? Is anyone there?
Ever play a game that makes you feel like you're actually in danger? Like really in danger?
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Today we're diving deep into one of those experiences. Alien. Isolation. Specifically, Mission 5. The quarantine.
Oh man, isolation. Now that one gets under your skin, even if you make it out alive.
So this mission, picture this. Amanda Ripley, she's trapped, needs to find a trauma kit for a friend. It sounds simple enough, right? Except she's stuck in the San Cristobal Medical Facility.
And this isn't just any medical facility. This is like walking right into one of those classic alien nightmares.
Okay, so we're talking flickering lights, that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Exactly. You've got the flickering lights, the abandoned equipment just lying around. It's claustrophobic, it's dark, and every corner feels like it's hiding something terrifying. The developers, Creative Assembly, they knew what they were doing with this one.
So they really nail that classic alien vibe, huh?
They absolutely nailed it. They used the environment itself to create tension.
Yeah.
It's like the level design is a character in itself, you know?
It's like the walls are closing in on you. And as if the atmosphere wasn't bad enough, you've got more to worry about than just the xenomorph in this place.
Way more.
Yeah.
It's not just the alien you got to watch out for. You've got these desperate survivors who are on edge, might mistake you for a threat and take a shot at you. And then there are the working Joes.
The what now? Working Joe.
The working Joes. Imagine like these creepy robot caretakers, but malfunctioning. Their programming's all messed up.
Oh, great. So they're unpredictable.
Totally unpredictable. One minute they might be trying to offer you like a bedpan or something. The next, they're trying to restrain you because they think you're the patient.
Yikes. Talk about a recipe for a panic attack. So you're trying to avoid crazy survivors, glitching robots, and a xenomorph who could be anywhere. No thank you.
And you have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
Alien, isolation, it's not a run and gun kind of game.
Right. You got to be sneaky, strategic.
Exactly. You need to use your environment, your wits. The game forces you to really think about how to outsmart these different enemies, each with their own quirks and weaknesses.
So it's like a puzzle on top of a horror movie.
It's like the ultimate test of your survival instincts. All while this incredible atmosphere just seeps into your bones.
And speaking of puzzles, this medical facility that Amanda is stuck in, it's practically one giant escape room. You've got to deal with passcodes, locked doors.
It sounds frustrating, but honestly, it works. It really, really works.
Really? How so? Because honestly, when I think about being chased by a xenomorph, the last thing I want to do is stop and solve a riddle.
Think about it. You're forced to slow down, to learn the layout of the facility, to memorize routes.
Okay.
The longer you spend in that place, the more it gets to you. It's like the opposite of home sweet home, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely more like, get me out of here. And just when you think Amanda might actually make it out of this nightmare, she finds the trauma kit, grabs it. What happens?
Alarm bells. System-wide alert. The whole place goes on lockdown.
Are you kidding? Talk about upping the stakes.
It's brilliant. Suddenly, stealth is out the window. It becomes this desperate race against time. You can really feel Amanda's panic.
Yeah, I bet. So, for anyone listening who's brave enough, maybe crazy enough, to try this mission, any advice?
Don't underestimate the power of the game's atmosphere. Pay attention to the environment. Learn how your enemies behave. And breathe. You're going to need your wits about you.
Amazing. That was a deep dive into true terror. Until next time.
Keep your motion tracker handy.
Ever notice how some of the scariest parts of games, well, they aren't the jump scares,
Right.
It's that creeping dread.
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
Mission 6 of Alien Isolation, set in the medical facility.
Right.
We're using this video breakdown you sent to dissect what makes this mission, well, scary.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. It's like the psychology of fear that really gets you.
Right from the start, it sends you back to the medical facility, which is somewhere you've been before.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how our own memories can make things scarier.
Exactly. It's not just that the place is more dangerous now, though it is.
Right.
It's that you, playing as Amanda Ripley, you remember it as, well, safer, maybe even a little hopeful from earlier in the game.
Yeah.
That contrast, how it betrays what you remember, it's really unsettling.
It's like the game knows how to push your buttons before anything even happens.
Yeah.
And speaking of unsettling, the source mentions they really crank up the atmosphere this time around in the medical facility.
Right.
Dim lighting, equipment left everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
The works.
Yeah.
For those who haven't played, picture a derelict spaceship,
Okay.
like the Nostromo
Mm-hmm.
from the first Alien.
Right.
But now imagine it as an abandoned hospital.
And the game, it uses those fears we already have brilliantly. Hospitals, they're supposed to be about healing.
Yeah.
But when they're left like this, abandoned,
Right?
they become something else.
Right.
Sterile, cold, full of, well, the ghosts of people suffering.
And if the atmosphere wasn't enough this time, the medical facility throws everything at you.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the alien, obviously, but also those malfunctioning working Joes.
Right.
Those creepy androids, you can never predict what they'll do.
Yeah.
You might remember them from earlier, but there's something you have to watch out for in the medical facility. Their patrol routes, they're more complex.
So-
The source mentioned that they will cut you off if you just stick to the main corridors.
It's a great example of how Alien Isolation uses, well, AI, basically, to make the tension higher. Those working Joes, they're this constant threat.
Yeah.
So you have to think strategically about every move you make. Can't just run and hide. You got to use the environment to your advantage.
Speaking of tension, the game doesn't just throw enemies at you.
Yeah.
It makes you solve puzzles too, right?
Right.
And not just random ones, these puzzles, they're integrated into survival. The source mentioned needing passcodes to unlock doors, rerouting power.
And those puzzles, they aren't just there to slow you down. They make you vulnerable. Think
Yeah.
about it. You're trying to solve this wiring puzzle. Your heart's pounding because, well, the alien could be right around the corner, and then you hear it.
What?
That beep.
Oh.
from the motion tracker.
Okay, now you're just trying to scare me.
Yeah.
And it's working.
I mean,
But that's what this game does so well. It's not about cheap scares. It's about that feeling of pressure, that psychological pressure. It
Yeah.
sustains it. And those puzzles, they can really make you attract some unwanted attention, huh?
yeah, exactly. You might need to get to a terminal, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
all lit up or
Right.
or you got to make a noise to, distract one of those working Joes, but then that could
Oh, I see.
bring the alien closer. So it's like this.
A trade-off.
Yeah, this risk.
Yeah.
Every time. It keeps you on edge.
And speaking of on edge, let's talk about the climax of Mission 6. So you find the med kit, finally,
Okay.
which you'd think relief, right?
Right.
But no.
It gets worse.
It kicks off this whole escape sequence, even more chaotic.
It's funny, it's a classic horror thing,
Yeah.
but it works every time. The game messes with what you expect. You're conditioned to think, okay, key item, now I'm safe. But alien, isolation, no, it just gets more intense.
It's like the game punishes you for thinking you're safe, even for a second. The source, they really get into how this escape ramps up the pressure.
Because now it's not just surviving. You got to escape with this thing.
The med kit.
Yeah, the med kit, which represents hope, right? Like a chance to actually make it. And the game is just throwing everything at you
Yeah.
to take that away.
And I guess the level design plays a part in this too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We talked about those corridors, the lights.
Yeah.
Does it actually change during this escape, or is it more like how you see it because you're freaking out?
That's a good question. It gets to how Alien Isolation mixes the level design with the, messing with your head.
Right.
While the place itself, it doesn't really change.
Yeah.
How you experience it, that's what changes. The stakes are higher, right? So your senses are heightened. Every little shadow, every sound the station makes,
Yeah.
it's louder. Like the game knows you're on edge.
So it's not just like the enemies themselves, or even what you're trying to do. It's the whole atmosphere. Yeah, just makes everything more tense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes this Mission 6 so good. Real survival horror. It gets that fear, true fear. It's not just being chased, It's feeling hunted. Like even when you think you're safe, something's out there.
And the level design, like we said, that plays a big part, right? Almost like it's another character.
Oh, totally. The medical facility, think about it. Narrow halls, lights going crazy, rooms just left how they were. It's all designed to make you feel, weak, alone.
Yeah.
Limits what you could see, right?
Yeah.
So you feel like you're being watched, but
Yeah.
can't see who's doing it, never sure what's around the corner. And
Yeah.
that's scary.
And it all goes back to that thing we talked about, how it takes what's familiar and makes it scary.
Right.
You've been to the medical facility before. You think, okay, I got this. But the game, it finds ways to still mess with you.
It uses that, how you expect to be safe in a hospital. We think healing, order, all that. But alien, isolation, nah. The medical facility is the opposite.
Yeah.
Decay,
Yeah.
danger. That throws you off big time.
Makes you think about how much work went into each part, huh? The enemies, the puzzles, even just how the environment looks, it all adds up. Creates this experience you don't forget.
Shows how powerful games can be when they use our own fears against us.
Totally. So next time you're playing Alien, Isolation,
Yeah.
and you end up back at the medical facility for Mission 6, remember this conversation.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the details, how the enemies move, how the puzzles work, how the place looks. That's what makes it scary, not just some cheap jump scare. Might change how you see horror games forever.
Don't forget to listen to your motion tracker, just in case.
Okay, now that's nightmare fuel. But on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the horrors of Mission 6. Thanks for joining us exploring Sevastopol. And we'll leave you with this. How much of our fear is it stuff we don't know? Or is it the stuff we de-own know but twisted into something bad? Until next time. You know those game levels that kind of get stuck in your head? Like they get under your skin, but in a good way?
Oh, absolutely. The ones you remember for all the right reasons.
Exactly. Well, that's what we're diving into today. Mission 7, Siegs and Synthetics from Alien. Isolation. We had a ton of requests to break this one down.
And for good reason, It's a real turning point in the game, not just another hallway.
Right. For those who haven't had the pleasure, Amanda Ripley is trying to get off Sevastopol Station, and she thinks the ship Torrens is the key.
Her ticket out of hell, basically.
Exactly. So Mission 7 takes her to the Siegson synthetics facility. They make the working Joes, and let me tell you...
Getting up close and personal with where those things come from, yeah, that's creepy. Real creepy.
No kidding. But there's this other thing, too. Just the atmosphere of the place. It's not like those sleek spaceship corridors we're used to.
No, this is different. This is Creative Assembly showing off. They made this place feel wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Think like industrial grime, lights flickering, and then bam, you're in some sterile lab, all white and echoing.
It's that contrast. 1 minute it's clinking pipes, and the next it's so clean it hurts your eyes. Honestly, that might be scarier than the alien itself, that feeling.
Well, speaking of scary, the working Joes in this mission, they've upped their game.
Oh, they're not messing around anymore.
It's not just that the AI is smarter, it's like they're learning as you play. Almost like they're adapting to you.
So you can't just rely on the same old tricks.
Nope. You have to use the environment, really think about how to outsmart them. It's a whole different level of strategy.
Which, I'll admit, my first playthrough, I was kind of lost. I kept hearing exploit the environment, but I didn't know what that meant, really.
Right, it's one of those things, it's easier said than done.
Exactly. But this mission, this is where it all clicked for me.
Oh, absolutely. And the introduction of a new tool really drives that home.
The gas torch, right?
Yeah. That thing is a game changer, literally.
Talk about feeling like the game just opened up.
Yeah.
Suddenly I could get into places I never could before.
It's not just about finding that one vent to crawl through anymore.
You're making your own paths, cutting through doors.
Risky, yeah.
Oh, incredibly, but also kind of awesome.
That's what I love about Alien. Isolation, though. It's not just about being scared, it's about that feeling of what's next. You know, like what's behind that next door or down that corridor.
Especially when you're the one cutting those doors open. But speaking of tension, Mission 7's climax. Whoa. Talk about putting all your skills to the test.
You're finally getting close to contacting that ship, the Torrens, right? Amanda needs those access tuner components.
Her only way out.
Exactly. But the game does not make it easy. You've got the atmosphere, you've got the alien, those working Joes are at their smartest, and then they throw everything they've got at you.
I remember thinking, it can't get worse than this. It did.
It's this perfect storm of everything the mission's been building to, You're not hiding anymore, you're manipulating the environment, using their programming against them. Desperate times.
And you really feel that desperation, which I think is why that whole theme of hope works so well in this mission.
Oh, 100%. That access tuner, that's more than just a plot device.
It's a symbol.
Right, of the outside world, of escape. It's like Amanda's clinging to this idea that she can get out, that she won't end up like,
like her mother. And the fact that she's literally piecing it together, finding parts in the middle of this nightmare.
It makes it that much more meaningful. You're not just handed the solution, you're fighting for every inch.
I never thought about it that way, but you're right. It's about her will, to survive, even when things are at their worst.
Which brings us to, well, the bigger picture. Siegson Synthetics. They're obsessed with this artificial life, but at what cost, right?
Yeah, they're the ones who brought a xenomorph onto a space station. Not the best track record.
They were so busy with the what that they never stopped to think about the why or the what if.
It's kind of like, I don't know, you see those working Joes, and yeah, they're creepy, but they're just following their programming.
Blindly following orders. And look where it got them.
Makes you wonder who the real monsters are, huh?
And that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mission 7 throws it right in your face.
Yeah.
It's not just about escaping the alien anymore. It's about, well, what are we willing to overlook in the name of progress?
That's the stuff that really sticks with you, right? It's not just jump scares and running. It's that feeling you get afterward. Like, did we learn anything?
It gets under your skin.
Yeah.
And that's what Mission 7 does so well. You're fighting to survive, obviously, but it makes you question the whole thing.
Siegson, progress. What are we really creating here?
And are we so different?
Okay, now that is a scary thought. But, I mean, think about it. The working Joes, they're not evil exactly.
No, they're just carrying out their programming.
No matter the cost. Kind of like, well, we do that too sometimes, don't we? Just following orders, not looking at the big picture.
And the game plays with that, right? Remember all those logs, those audio recordings you find? It's like eavesdropping on disaster in slow motion.
The emails, the messages, you really get a feel for how Siegson operated.
And it's not pretty.
profits over people, taken to a terrifying extreme. It's like they skipped right past unethical and went straight to bringing a xenomorph on board.
Yeah, not their brightest moment.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, doesn't it? Take away the spaceships, the fancy tech. Are we really so far removed from that kind of thinking?
Corporate greed, ambition. It can make people do some pretty messed up things, even without xenomorphs. Well, maybe. I mean, I hope.
That's the beauty of it, though. Alien. Isolation makes you question, makes you look a little closer at your own world.
So for anyone listening who's brave enough to step onto Sevastopol Station themselves, pay attention, folks.
Don't just run from the monsters.
Look for the warning signs, the things that make you uncomfortable, make you question what you're seeing. Because the scariest discoveries, those are the ones we often make about ourselves.
Exactly. And on that cheery note,
Until next time, stay curious, stay alert.
and maybe don't apply for a job at Seeks and Synthetics.
You never know what you might end up creating. Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You guys requested we tackle Alien, Isolation's Mission 8, Haven, and let me tell you, this one is something else.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about a game that's already notorious for its, like, relentless tension, right? The constant fear of being hunted.
Right.
But Haven, this mission, it takes that fear and kind of twists the knife, it flips the script in a way that really gets under your skin.
Yeah, it really messes with your expectations. Like, up to this point in the game, you've mostly been in the bowels of the Sevastopol station.
Right, all those claustrophobic corridors and industrial areas.
Exactly. But then, bam, Haven drops you into Solomon's Galleria.
And for those of you who haven't had the pleasure, imagine like a big, once bustling mall, apartments, shops, the whole shebang.
A little slice of normalcy.
Yeah.
Very, very wrong.
And that's where the real horror starts to sink in, I think.
Calm
because
down in there,
we
you
associate
android
these
fuck.
kinds of places,
Yeah.
malls, shopping centers, with safety, right?
Right.
Familiarity.
Exactly. It should be safe. So when you're being stalked through this environment that should feel safe, well, it just cranks up the fear factor, makes it way more personal.
Oh, for sure. I remember the first time I played Haven, it was unsettling in a way I wasn't quite expecting. Like, suddenly it wasn't just the xenomorph I was worried about.
Because that's the other thing, right? Haven doesn't just change the scenery. It throws a whole other curveball by switching up the threats you're facing.
Still got the alien, obviously. That never really goes away in this game.
No. Always lurking, just waiting for the perfect moment to ruin your day. But now you've got hostile human survivors to deal with too. Each with their own agenda, might I add.
Fun times.
And as if that wasn't enough, you've got the working
Taylor
Joes to
can't.
contend with
I
as
can
well.
catch the next
Ugh,
car.
those things still give me the creeps.
Yeah, those creepy androids. Malfunctioning security guards, essentially. And completely unpredictable.
So now you're not just trying to avoid one major threat, you're juggling three, each of them requiring a totally different approach.
This whole new ball game.
It's like the game just kind of throws you in the deep end and says, all right, you've learned how to hide, now let's see you improvise.
Exactly. And this, with this three-pronged threat, that's where Alien Isolation really forces you to think tactically.
Oh, yeah.
You see, the working Joes, they rely primarily on sound and sight,
Right?
and that motion tracker you've been using to avoid the alien.
Right.
Well, now it becomes a tool to manipulate the Joes' patrol patterns.
Oh, interesting.
You can herd them into each other, or, even better, lead them right into the alien's path.
Ooh, that's just devious. I love it. Okay, so I do remember those moments of, how do I use this nightmare against that nightmare? It kept things interesting, that's for sure.
It really does. It adds this whole other layer of depth to the game. It's not just reacting anymore. You're strategizing, thinking a few steps ahead. You're using the environment and each enemy's weaknesses against them.
And speaking of weaknesses, this is where Mission 8 gets
Now
even
welcome,
more
committee.
interested, I
Just
think.
get up
Because
here,
it's not
please,
just
now.
about new threats, right? It throws some new tools your way, too.
Oh, absolutely. Remember how limited your crafting options were up to this point?
Yeah.
Well, Haven opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay.
New blueprints, new materials,
sure.
all geared toward giving you an edge in this much more complex environment.
Right.
Need to create a distraction. Craft a noisemaker.
Smart.
You need to slip past a Joe unnoticed. There's something for that, too.
Yeah, it's like the game knows it's turning up the heat, so it gives you a few extra options, but, subtly.
Right.
It's not going to hold your hand. You got to experiment, observe, figure out how these new tools can be used in this new environment.
Exactly, and that's where those aha moments come in that we always talk about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That sense of discovery that I figured it out, it's incredibly satisfying when it clicks.
Totally, totally. Okay, but Haven isn't all just outsmarting killer robots and avoiding the alien, is it? There's a story here, and it kind of kicks into high gear during this mission.
Big time. You're on your way to the Colonial Marshal Bureau, remember? This potential beacon of hope in this whole mess.
Right.
And what you discover there, well, let's just say it's a real game changer.
No spoilers, but I remember my jaw practically hitting the floor when I first saw it. It just throws a whole other wrench into everything you thought you knew. Talk about a twist you don't see coming.
It's such a classic alien move, though, right? Like,
Yep.
just when you think you're getting a handle on things, bam. But what makes it work so well here in Haven is how it plays on those themes of isolation and desperation.
Right.
You're trapped on this dying station, hunted by practically everything that moves.
And everyone's lost their minds.
Exactly. And you think, okay, maybe the Marshal
What
Bureau,
happened
maybe
out
that's
there?
the answer. But then,
I need a
nope.
way out of here.
It all
Ripley.
goes very, very wrong.
And yet, something keeps you
Just
going.
start
You got to see it
talking.
through.
I
It's
wanna
Amanda
know
Ripley,
everything.
through and through.
Absolutely, and that's what I love about it, right? Mission 8, even with all its twists and turns and terrors, it reminds you that Alien, isolation is about more than just jump scares. It's about resilience. It's about finding that inner strength to face the unknown, even when everything in you is screaming, run!
We've talked about the setting, the enemies, the story, but what really gets me about Haven is the feeling it evokes. That constant tension, that sense of being hunted by, well, everything.
The environment itself becomes a threat.
Exactly.
Right.
Masterfully done.
Couldn't agree more. And that brings us back to you, listener. Because as you navigate the corridors of Solomon's Galleria, think about how the game uses this environment, these threats, to get under your skin. How does it make you feel? Because that, I think, is where Alien Isolation really shines.
Someone's in
It's an
here.
experience, that's for sure. One that'll stick with you long after you put the controller down. So if you're about to dive into Mission 8, Haven, buckle up.
Calm
Get ready
down
for a
in there, you
masterclass in
android
tension,
fuck.
resourcefulness, and the sheer will to survive. And hey, if you outsmart a working Joe or two along the way, savor that victory. You've earned it. Until next time, happy gaming.
You ever notice how some games, they use flashbacks like they're trying to bore you with history lessons?
Right.
But then you get those games that use them to totally flip the script.
Yeah.
And that's what we're diving into today.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Mission 9, Beacon from Alien. Isolation.
Oh, man, what a game.
It shows you how to make a flashback that'll stick with you. No,
Yeah.
seriously, unforgettable.
Totally agree.
So, Alien, Isolation. You're Amanda Ripley, Ellen Ripley's daughter, right?
Yeah, heavy legacy to carry.
And you're just trying to survive on this space station, Sevastopol.
And it gets
The
intense.
suspense is insane. You don't even want to see the xenomorph most of the time,
Oh, way more terrifying when it's just that constant threat, You never know.
Exactly. But then Mission 9 comes along and throws a wrench in everything.
Oh yeah, things get real different, real fast.
It takes us to, LV-426.
The planet, no way.
Yep, straight from the movies, where it all started.
That desolate rock. Man, talk about a nightmare scenario.
Can't get this. You're not even Amanda anymore. We're going way back, playing as Captain Henry Marlowe from the Nostromo.
Oh, whoa. Okay, so we're talking a blast from the past, literally. But how does that even work? I mean, story-wise.
That's the cool part, is the game's weaving together the past and the present. We're seeing the events that shaped everything that's happening to Amanda.
So it's a story within a story.
Exactly. And it just adds this whole other level to it.
Man, the developers were clever for that. Really makes you think.
Right. It's like we're solving a puzzle alongside Amanda, but we're also holding on to these crucial missing pieces from the past. Speaking of puzzles, though, Marlowe exploring that derelict ship on LV-426. So creepy.
Oh, yeah, gotta be.
Imagine H.R. Geiger's artwork, but you're living in it.
Oh, man, that's the stuff of nightmares right there. All that twisted metal and those organic, things. Oh, gives me the chills just thinking about it.
And it's all shrouded in darkness. You never know what's lurking around the next corner. And that's the brilliance of it.
What do you mean?
The game doesn't hit you over the head with jump scares and cheap thrills. It lets your imagination run wild. The environment, the atmosphere, that's where the real horror takes hold.
It's true. Like in the movies, you see the alien, the gore, everything. But in isolation, it's what you don't see that gets you. Your mind fills in the blanks, and it's always way scarier than anything the developers could have shown us.
Exactly. You said it better than I could. It's like walking through a nightmare and you just can't wake up.
And just when you think it can't get any creepier, bam.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Marlowe makes a discovery. Let's just say it involves xenomorph eggs and a whole lot of nope.
You're kidding. He stumbles upon those things. Talk about a nightmare before the actual nightmare.
So we've got Marlowe Wright walking into this whole mess totally clueless about what those eggs really mean.
And meanwhile,
Amanda's stuck on Sevastopol, searching for answers about her mom on a station that's gotten completely haywire.
talk about dramatic irony, huh? Like, we know what's gonna happen. We see those eggs and we're like, no, Marlowe, don't.
But he doesn't have a clue.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You can't look away, even though you know it's gonna be bad.
Totally. It creates this crazy tension, right? Because on one hand, you're like, oh God, he's going to unleash hell. But then
On the other hand,
you're finally putting the pieces together.
like, so that's how Sevastopol went to hell in a handbasket.
Exactly. It's like peeking behind the curtain, and those what ifs start to eat at you.
What if he just turned around?
What if he'd listened to his gut? Would Sevastopol even be in this mess? Would Amanda be fighting for her life?
Man, heavy stuff.
And imagine if Amanda knew, right? If she knew this whole ordeal, this entire nightmare was basically kick-started because someone got a little too curious.
It just adds this whole other layer of tragedy to the story,
For sure. It's like she's searching for answers, but what if the answer is just a string of bad choices? That sometimes things just happen.
And that's what's so great about this game. It's not just about jump scares and aliens.
Yeah, it makes you actually think.
It's about fate, free will, the consequences of our actions,
Speaking of consequences, did you notice how the pacing changes in Mission 9? Like, it's way slower than the rest of the game.
Oh, for sure. Like, the xenomorph is still out there, but the game's not throwing it in your face constantly.
It's more about the atmosphere,
Yeah.
The dread. It's almost like it's lulling you into a false sense of security.
And
And you find those eggs.
everything changes.
It's like the game itself is holding its breath, waiting for that one moment to just unleash everything, and then it rips you right back to the present. Leaves you to deal with the fallout.
Which is genius when you think about it, because that flashback, it's not just some side story.
It's connected to everything.
It changes how you see the present, Like, suddenly every creaking pipe on Sevastopol is 10 times creepier.
Exactly. Because now you know what those creaks could mean. You're carrying the weight of Marlowe's discovery with you. Every encounter, every decision you make as Amanda, it's all colored by that knowledge. So it makes you wonder, right? How does seeing things through Marlowe's eyes, how does that change how we see Amanda?
Does it make us more sympathetic to her, knowing how this all started?
Or does it make us question her choices even more? It's like we're playing on two different levels, You're trying to survive in the present with Amanda, but then there's this whole other layer of messed up history weighing you down.
Totally. It's like, even if Amanda makes it out of Sevastopol alive,
She can never really escape, can she?
nope. That shadow of LV-426, that feeling that it could all happen again, it's gonna stick with her, with us even.
It's kind of brilliant, though, when you think about it. This one flashback, it takes the game to a whole other level. We're not just running and hiding from an alien anymore.
It makes you think about all the what ifs, right?
Exactly. Like, do we even have control over our own destinies? Or are we just pawns in some cosmic game? And the way Mission 9 ties into the whole alien story is so good.
Seriously, like, it doesn't feel like fan service.
It actually adds to it.
It gives us this whole new understanding of what happened on the Nostromo, why things went so wrong, which, by the way they designed that mission, the derelict ship, chef's kiss.
The atmosphere is so oppressive, you can practically feel the dread seeping out of the walls.
It's proof that you don't need constant action to create real horror. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the things left unsaid, that really get under your skin.
No arguments here. It's like Mission 9 throws down this challenge to other storytellers,
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, top this.
This is how you do a flashback, right? And it makes you wonder, right? Like, In our own lives, what choices have we made? What little actions have we taken that might have bigger consequences down the line? Stuff we don't even realize.
It's kind of terrifying when you think about it. The butterfly effect, but with xenomorphs.
Exactly. And on that note, folks, I think we've earned ourselves a break from the nightmare fuel.
For now, at least. But listen, next time you're playing a game or watching a movie, pay attention to the flashbacks. Don't just skip through them. They might be trying to tell you something important.
Something that could change how you see the whole story.
And who knows, maybe it'll even make you think twice about your own choices. Until next time, happy exploring, everybody. Just, maybe steer clear of any derelict spaceships for a while. Okay?
And watch out for those eggs. All right, so let's dive right into this, huh? We're tackling Alien. Isolation's Mission 10 this time around. Trapping the Xenomorph, I think they call it.
Oh, yeah.
Fans of the game, they know this one. It's intense.
I feel.
And if this is your first time, well, get ready, because we're about to break down why this mission just works.
It's a good one.
So first things first, you finally get a flamethrower.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what we all wanted, right?
Exactly.
But, and I think you probably know this was coming.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a walk in the park. This isn't Aliens, right?
No.
This is where Isolation gets seriously smart. It takes that source material, all that dread, and then it throws you a curveball. Exactly. The flamethrower. Perfect example. It's powerful. Yeah, no argument there. But it's a double-edged sword, you know. You're dealing with limited fuel,
Yeah.
and the game makes you feel that.
Every shot counts.
Absolutely. Every shot. You mess up, you might pay for it later. And then there's the xenomorph itself.
Right, this thing, it's not just some monster, it adapts.
It does. Remember the first movie? Even when they incinerated it, it just kept coming.
Oh man, that's not a fun thought. So not only are you managing resources like it's going out of style, but this thing laughs at fire.
Pretty much. It's all about calculated risks in this mission. You know, run and gun, forget it. Every encounter, every choice you make, there are consequences.
And those consequences usually involve some very pointy teeth.
Usually, yeah. So
Yeah.
what are we doing with this thing then? If we can't just, you know...
Oh, right, the goal. We're not out to kill the xenomorph. I mean, that'd be nice.
Right.
But let's be real. Feels impossible. No, the goal is to trap it.
Ambitious.
And not just anywhere. You're trying to get this thing into one of those detachable lab modules.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
The tension is unreal. But here's the thing that always gets me. Getting to that lab, it's practically its own horror movie.
Tell me about it.
Sevastopol's station. It turns into this terrifying puzzle box. You're sealing off areas, rerouting power, anything to get an advantage.
You've got to use the station itself to survive.
And the whole time you can hear it, you know? The clicks, the hisses. It's in the walls, man. The game never lets you forget that.
It's in your head, too, at that point. Masterclass in environmental storytelling. Sevastopol itself. It's a character. This oppressive, decaying thing. Both your lifeline and a death trap all at once. Oh, it really gets under your skin. And you mentioned the sound design, those cues. It's brilliant, right? Like you were saying, those motion trackers from the films.
Yeah, the beeping, getting faster as the xenomorph gets closer. Isolation takes that and just runs with it.
It's relentless. You're glued to your own tracker, trying to plan your moves, always listening for anything, really. Any little sound could mean game over.
It's true. You're not just up against the xenomorph, you know. It's the environment, your dwindling supplies, your own brain trying to betray you.
Yeah, the mental game is half the battle.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of freaking out, there's this moment, right? You finally reach the lab, the one you've been risking everything to get to, and the music kicks in.
Oh, I know what you mean.
It's like the game knows you're about to walk into pure terror. It's not just background noise, it's a warning.
Oh, it totally is. It's like what John Carpenter did with Halloween, or those soundtracks in Silent Hill 2. Minimal, but effective. You know, the music becomes this character in itself.
Right, it's like this constant companion. And Isolation, it never lets you off the hook. It builds that tension even when you think you're safe.
Yeah.
It's like, it knows.
Exactly. Always that feeling of being hunted, never quite able to relax. And then just when you think you've got a handle on things, Curveball.
Weights, don't forget weights.
Oh, right. That synthetic, the one from Seegson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we kind of relied on that guy to get us this far.
And then he pulls a fast one. No spoilers, but let's just say any plans you made. Out the airlock.
Ouch. Yeah, that's rough.
And what happens next? You're doing an EVA suit spacewalk.
Oh, wow. Talk about a change of pace.
Right. For anyone who doesn't know, that means you are outside the station, as in space, tethered by a thread, basically. And visually, incredible.
I bet. It's like going from claustrophobia to agoraphobia all in the span of a few minutes.
And thematically,
Yeah.
genius. It's that contrast, right? You go from tight corridors, always something right on top of you, to this vast emptiness.
Where the emptiness itself is the threat.
Yeah.
Inside the station, it's like the threat's right there, but it's contained, you know?
Yeah.
Out in space,
He's great.
you're exposed, vulnerable.
Alone with your thoughts, and not a lot of oxygen, it really makes you appreciate just how much the game messes with your head. Like, you think you've got a handle on the horror, right? Then, bam, existential crisis time, floating in the void.
It's effective, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like all those things we love about Alien. Isolation.
It's
all
there.
there in this mission. Not just the jump scares or even the xenomorph. Really.
The atmosphere.
It's the pressure, that feeling that something's wrong even when it's quiet.
And a big part of that has to be the AI, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with the xenomorph. It's not predictable.
Oh no, this thing learns.
It adapts. You change up your tactics. It picks up on it. You're never truly safe.
Yeah.
Because you can never be sure how it'll react.
You're constantly on edge, which makes those close calls, those moments where you barely make it, even more intense.
Oh, for sure. Because it feels earned.
Yeah.
Right? Like you outsmarted something real, something dangerous.
It's one thing to make a game scary, but when it feels like the enemy is making its own choices, that's another level.
It is, no question. It's the difference between watching a horror movie and feeling like you're living in one. So, thinking about all that, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. Could Mission 10 have worked without that dynamic? Could it have been as effective if the xenomorph was just, I don't know, scripted, following a set path?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
on one hand, yeah, scripted sequences, they can be scary, they can be tailored, but they get predictable, you know?
You learn the pattern, and the fear loses its teeth. But when you have an AI that's always changing things up, man, that keeps you on your toes. So, what do you think? Essential or not?
I think it's at the heart of what makes this game so good. So, so good. The moment you take that away, you lose something. You lose that feeling of being hunted by something real.
That's the magic right there. So next time you're sneaking through Sevastopol, holding your breath, hoping whatever's in the vents doesn't hear you, think about that. Would it be as scary if it always knew where you were? Anyway, until next time, stay curious and try not to let the xenomorphs get you. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're back for another deep dive. And today we're jumping into something pretty exciting, in my opinion, at least.
Oh, yeah?
We're looking at Mission 11, Hazard Containment from the game Alien, Isolation. So, picking right back up after the events of Mission 10, listeners will recall, things were pretty intense back there.
Yeah, no kidding.
But, the xenomorph is,
For now.
for now, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Alien. Isolation, right? You never really know when that other shoe is going to drop.
For sure.
But yeah, for now, contained. You, as Amanda Ripley, you've got a little bit of a breather. But of course, this being Sevastopol Station, well, there are a few more surprises in store, right?
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting about this particular mission, Mission 11, is how it kind of shifts gears a little bit. Up until this point, a lot of it has been about, that constant threat of the alien, being right behind you,
Right.
looking over your shoulder, that sort of thing. But this mission really emphasizes exploration,
It's done now.
puzzle solving, and just navigating an environment that's gone from chaotic to like full-on
I'll see you back at the bureau.
treacherous.
Yeah, and this is where like the game's environmental storytelling I think really shines, because you're not just dealing with the alien anymore, you're dealing with like the aftermath of everything.
Right.
And so like picturing yourself, you're walking through these corridors and they're just like littered with debris.
Yep.
Entire sections of the station have just collapsed. And there's just this like pervasive sense of danger like around every corner. It's really effective, I think.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it's so smart because even without the xenomorph, breathing down your neck,
Right.
the station itself becomes kind of this oppressive presence.
Mhm.
You're constantly reminded that you're alone, you're vulnerable, and anything could happen.
Absolutely, yeah. And just when you think, okay, well, at least it's not the alien right now, Mission 11 is like, hold my beer. Because now you've got, hostile human survivors to deal with.
Yeah.
Because, a wrecked space station and a relentless alien creature just weren't enough, right?
Right. Of course not.
Got up a stakes somehow.
Yeah, got to keep it interesting. But this is actually a really classic survival horror trope, and it's used effectively here. Because think about it, when the established order collapses, when society kind of breaks down, people panic. Basic human instincts kick in. And we see this in real-world disasters too, right? Fear, desperation, they can lead to conflict, they can lead to violence. So it adds this whole other layer of complexity to what's already an incredibly intense situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're not just navigating like the physical hazards of Sevastopol, but you're also having to contend with the unpredictable nature of other people, other survivors who are just as desperate as you are.
Right. And who knows what they might do to survive.
And that's where the game really excels, I think, in blurring the lines between like who or what is the bigger threat. Is it the xenomorph? Or is it the humans who've been pushed to their absolute breaking point?
Yeah, exactly. It's not always clear cut, and that keeps you on your toes the entire time because you never know who to trust, who to turn your back on. You can't let your guard down for a second.
Exactly.
And speaking of, staying alert, staying sharp, Mission 11 also throws a bunch of puzzles at you.
Well, yeah, the puzzle. And these aren't your simple, find the key kind of puzzles.
Yeah.
They're really cleverly integrated into the environment, and they force you to think strategically under pressure.
So imagine you're trying to find alternate routes through this, messed up station. Systems are malfunctioning, you've got to bypass things. And the entire time, there's this knowledge that danger could be right around the corner.
Right. And it's like that's a different kind of pressure, right? Like, it's testing your problem-solving skills, but under duress. Like, very few games really capture that.
Absolutely. And that's what makes them so effective. Because they're not just there to be, a mental challenge. They're designed to heighten the tension, to make you feel the weight of every single decision that you make. Like, one wrong move, and it could have really dire consequences.
Oh, yeah. So we've got, like, this perfect storm brewing here, Mission 11, right? We've got a devastated station that's, like, on the verge of collapse.
Right.
You've got new threats emerging from the shadows, literally.
Literally, yeah.
And then you've got these puzzles that force you to, like, really think critically, but under immense pressure.
Yeah.
But, we also can't forget Amanda's got a job to do, right?
Right. Yeah.
She's not just trying to survive, like she's trying to figure out how to deal with this xenomorph threat permanently.
That's right.
And that's where, the mission kind of comes to a head.
And this is where I think we start to see Amanda's resourcefulness and her determination really come to the forefront.
Oh.
Because despite everything, despite the odds stacked against her, she actually manages to activate a new containment plan.
Right.
It's a small glimmer of hope in this otherwise really, really bleak situation.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to, spoil exactly what that plan is yet, but let's just say it demonstrates that Amanda, she's not just reacting to the horrors around her.
Right.
She's taking charge. She's fighting back. And she's proving that she is more than capable of, taking control of her own destiny in this awful situation.
Yeah, and this is where things get really, really interesting. Because just when you think, okay, maybe there's a chance, Amanda's going to pull through this, Mission 11 throws like the biggest curveball at you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a twist that is so unsettling.
It changed the whole game.
It really does. It changes the whole game.
Yeah.
Because you're expecting, another close call with the alien,
Yeah.
right? Another like, oh, gotta run and hide kind of moment.
Right. Exactly.
But instead, the danger comes from a completely unexpected source, and that would be the working Joes, the androids.
The androids,
And
yeah.
we're not talking about like, oh, a couple of them malfunctioning or something.
Yeah.
Our sources describe this as a full-on massacre
Yeah.
at the marshal's quarters.
It's brutal.
Waits, gone, like his whole team just decimated.
It's really a chilling turn of events, and I think what makes it so effective
Yeah.
is it makes you question everything you thought you knew about these androids.
Right.
Like, before this, they were creepy. Sure.
Right. A little unnerving.
A little off-putting, yeah.
Right.
But they weren't, like, openly hostile.
Right.
And now suddenly they're, like, the primary antagonist.
And it's like, what happened?
Right.
Like, was it just some kind of malfunction? Or did something more, I don't know, deliberate occur?
Right, like, is there something more insidious going on here? And, you know, that also makes you wonder, what about Apollo?
Oh, yeah, the AI.
The station AI? Could it be involved somehow?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, the game doesn't give you any easy answers, and that's what's so brilliant about it.
It's true.
Because you're left grappling with that same uncertainty and fear that Amanda is, and it gets under your skin.
You start to question everything, right?
Totally.
Like, were they always capable of this? Should we have seen this coming?
Yeah, it really makes you think about, like, artificial intelligence in a whole new light, even in this, you know, fictional setting.
It's almost like the game is holding up a mirror
Oh, absolutely.
to, like, our own anxieties about technology. Like,
That's-
we create these things, but what if they turn on us? It's a classic fear, but it's really effective.
It's incredibly effective, and it adds this whole other layer, right, on top of everything else to the atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's not just a plot twist either.
Yeah.
This android uprising, it completely changes how the game plays from this point forward.
It changes everything.
So now, you know, Amanda and Ricardo, they're caught between, you know, the xenomorph, which is contained but still a threat,
Oh, very much so.
and an army of these rogue androids who, as far as we know, have no clear motive.
Right. We don't know why they're doing this.
It's like, talk about a no-win situation, right?
Absolutely. It's like picking between, like, the frying pan and the fire, except both of them could kill you.
Yeah.
And that's what's so brilliant about this game. It's just relentless. It keeps you guessing, keeps you on edge.
So to kind of like recap where we are, because it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Mission 11 leaves us with this like really chilling image. Amanda Ripley, you know, she's stuck between this terrifying xenomorph that thankfully is contained
For now.
for now,
Right.
but still, and then on the other hand, this army of androids who are now hostile and we don't know why.
Yeah, and it's not just that they're hostile, right? It's like they've gone completely off the rails. It's a massacre back there.
Totally. It really changes how you see them.
It makes you question, like, I don't know, it makes you question everything, you know?
And I think that's what the game does so well, is it doesn't give you the answers, right? Like,
Okay.
we're sitting here speculating.
Yeah, just like Amanda is.
Right. We're in the same boat as her. We don't know why this is happening.
Yeah.
And so it makes you think, like, well, could this have been prevented? What does this mean going forward? Not just for Sevastopol, but for, like, how we view AI in general, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's some, like, heady stuff for a video game, but I think it's handled really well.
It's so well done, and it adds this whole other layer to, like, the experience of playing, because it's not just about survival anymore.
Right.
It's about grappling with these really complex themes, you know, and it makes you think about things differently even after you've put the controller down.
Absolutely.
It stays with you.
And so, you know, if you're looking for a game that's going to make you think, it's going to challenge you, it's going to scare the heck out of you.
Oh, yeah.
Alien, Isolation, I think, checks all those boxes.
It definitely.
And Mission 11, to bring it back around, you know, this is just one example of how the game constantly throws you curveballs, subverts your expectations, and leaves you wanting more.
And that's the mark of a great game, I think.
Absolutely. And on that note, you know, we've talked a lot about what we think, but we want to hear from you. Hit us up on social media. Let us know your thoughts on Mission 11, on Alien, Isolation in general.
Yeah, what would you do?
Exactly. What would you do if you were in Amanda's shoes? Until then, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks, everyone. Ever play a game and it, like, totally flips the script on you?
Mm-hmm.
Not like a cheap trick or anything, but something that makes you rethink the whole experience.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
Mission 12, Synthetic Solution from Alien. Isolation.
Oh, nice.
Now, anyone familiar with Isolation knows it's survival horror, like textbook. You're Amanda Ripley, Ellen Ripley's daughter.
Right.
Stuck on a space station, and this alien is hunting you down. Terrifying.
Oh, for sure.
But Mission 12, it changes things up. Imagine that constant dread of the alien. Suddenly it's like, on pause,
Really?
gone.
Yeah.
And instead you're facing, well, malfunctioning androids.
Huh. Doesn't sound as scary on paper.
See, that's what's so brilliant.
Okay.
What do you make of that? Swapping xenomorphs for androids, suspense-wise.
It's playing with your expectations, right? You've spent the entire game up to this point terrified of this unpredictable alien thing. You're on edge, jumpy, every sound could be it.
You're in the zone, totally.
Then, bam, the game drops you in this sterile, almost clinical Seegson synthetics facility. Different kind of unsettling.
The atmosphere is so oppressive, like the walls are closing in, even without the alien.
Exactly. It's masterful. That environment, cold metal, those flickering lights, the whirring machinery. It all becomes its own kind of horror.
Familiar tech, but now it's ominous.
And dangerous. Because it's not just the atmosphere, right? It's the working Joes themselves.
Oh, there's something else. Not your typical jump scare baddies.
No. These androids, they're designed to get under your skin. They move too smoothly, unnaturally quiet. And those faces? Blank, expressionless.
Staring right through you.
And their AI. Forget about it. They patrol in these weird patterns, use the environment to their advantage.
Swanking you, cutting off exits, that kind of thing.
Worse. They listen for you. They'll hear you running, hiding in lockers. They force you to think differently.
No more hiding, get outsmarted, right?
Absolutely. The game becomes about using the environment against them, disabling security systems, creating distractions, manipulating their routes.
Like a deadly game of chess, except, with more bolts and wrenches.
And higher stakes. And the mission builds to this climax, you gotta shut them all down.
Talk about tension.
What's brilliant, though, is how the working Joes, as scary as they are, they still represent that same corporate coldness of the facility.
Yeah, they're like the embodiment of that whole soulless corporation.
Right, so you've got the alien primal fear, but then these androids, they tap into a different kind of fear, the fear of technology gone wrong,
Our creation's turning on us, that classic sci-fi horror theme. But in Isolation, it's not just a theme, it's in your face, forcing you to adapt. So much more terrifying than just another monster in event.
I agree, it really makes you think about horror in games, how a change in threat can completely reshape the experience.
Exactly. It's like Alien. Isolation is asking, you thought you knew fear, think again.
Right. So how do you think removing the main threat, even temporarily, actually makes Mission 12 scarier?
It's like the game knows you're expecting the alien, right? So it withholds that, makes you anticipate it, dread it. Meanwhile, it throws this other kind of fear at you, this more cerebral, psychological horror.
And because it's unexpected, it throws you off balance. You don't know how to react.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you question every sound, every flicker of light.
Right.
You're waiting for the alien, but then it's the working Joes that get you. Brilliant game design. Hey everyone, you know how much I love a good horror game, and today we're going deep on one that really nails the atmosphere, Alien Isolation.
Oh yeah, Isolation, that game will stay with you for sure. For this deep dive, we're looking specifically at Mission 13, Consultation. You really get put through the ringer on this one.
Looks like the developers took everything you thought you knew about the game and just flipped it on its head. I mean, right off the bat, you're dealing with the aftermath of Samuel's sacrifice. It happened before you even start the mission, but wow, talk about setting the tone. What's so effective about how they handle that from a design perspective?
It's subtle, right? You don't actually see it happen, but the game uses environmental storytelling to make sure you feel the weight of it.
It's like you don't need the explicit visuals because your brain fills in the blanks. And honestly, that's way more effective at creating that sense of dread.
Exactly. You walk into a room, and there's a blood trail leading to a sealed door, maybe some sparks flying from a busted panel. You instantly know something bad went down, even without seeing it.
And it makes you think, if that could happen to Samuels, what chance do I have? Which brings us to the other big thing about this mission.
No weapons.
Yeah, they totally strip you bare. No flamethrower, no revolver, nothing. As someone who loves hoarding every weapon I can find in games, that was a terrifying feeling. For those listening who maybe haven't had the pleasure of that experience, what's the design philosophy behind taking away the player's ability to fight back?
So it completely changes the way you approach the game, right? It's no longer about combat, it's about pure survival. You're forced to rely on stealth, strategy, your wits. That's what makes it so effective is horror. It taps into that primal fear of being hunted.
Yeah, and you really have to use everything at your disposal. I'm talking about utilizing distractions, taking advantage of hiding spots, really learning the aliens' patrol patterns. Like, the game throws you in the deep end, but you got to learn to swim and fast. And then there's that whole section with the motion trackers going haywire.
Oh man, the motion trackers. Yeah, normally those are your lifeline in the game, letting you see the aliens' movements. But in this flooded area, the coolant messes them up. It's just a jumbled mess of blips and static.
It's terrifying. Yeah. You have no idea where the alien is, you're essentially blind. Which is a brilliant move by the developers because it forces you to rely on your other senses. Sound design becomes even more crucial.
And that's another thing that Alien Isolation absolutely nails the sound design. The creaking of the station, the distant hiss of steam, the aliens' chilling shrieks, it all ramps up the tension to almost unbearable levels. And for players who really like to dig into the mechanics, who love to master a game's systems, this kind of challenge can be incredibly rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you're not just surviving, you're overcoming the odds. And then just when you think you've gotten a handle on things, just when you think you might actually escape this nightmare, you finally reach Apollo.
The AI everyone's been after, the supposed key to understanding everything.
Right. And the music swells, the tension is palpable, and then cliffhanger. What happens next? Well, you'll have to play the game to find out.
Or listen to our next deep dive where we'll pick up the story there. What's so fascinating about Alien Isolation is how it constantly keeps you on edge. It masterfully blends moments of intense pressure, like in Mission 13, with other types of gameplay.
Yeah, it never lets you get too comfortable. You never know what to expect next. So for all you listeners out there, we have a question for you. What other games have you played that successfully use these kinds of shifts in gameplay to keep you engaged? Let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive.
All right, motion trackers on, everyone, because we are going deep into Sevastopol for this one.
Going deep.
You sent in some research on Alien Isolation,
Yeah.
specifically Mission 14, The Descent. And all right, I can handle a good scare. I can handle some jump scares, but this is like next level
Yeah.
stuff from what I'm seeing.
Absolutely.
Like this is where the game goes from, ooh, that's creepy, to I need a new pair of pants.
This is where the game takes a turn, I think would be a good way to put it.
Okay.
It's a turning point, definitely, in
Yeah.
terms of the atmosphere and the challenges that you're going to be facing.
Yeah, the research here mentions the xenomorph nest, and this isn't like, some cozy little birdhouse. This is like full on, like H.R. Geiger designed this thing, pulsating walls, flickering lights. It's like the environment itself is like, get out.
And it's completely intentional.
Okay.
That's one of the things that Alien Isolation does so well, is it uses the environment to really evoke that classic feeling of dread, that classic feeling of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And just thinking about the Alien franchise in general, it plays on our fear of the unknown. It plays on our fear of being hunted.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
fear of being completely outmatched.
Yeah.
And that's what that nest embodies. It's this oppressive presence.
Okay, I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, this is where the game is like, hold my beer, because it throws not one, but multiple xenomorphs at you
at the same time.
at the same time. Oh,
Yeah.
plus, as if that wasn't bad enough,
Just for fun.
just for fun, we've got the face huggers just hanging out.
Hanging out, yeah.
So not only am I having a panic attack just looking at this nest, I've basically got an all-you-can-eat buffet chasing me around.
It ramps up the tension to 11, there's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
The gameplay has to shift. You have to think a lot faster on your feet.
Okay.
You have to really rely on stealth, and you really have to strategize your approach to this level in a way that you haven't had to in previous levels.
All right.
It's really a juggling act, keeping yourself hidden, managing your resources,
Yeah.
hoping to God you don't trip over that pipe at the worst possible time.
Which, knowing my gaming skills, is a very real possibility.
Of course.
But it's not just running and hiding.
Well,
The research also mentioned something about solving puzzles within this machinery to purge the nest. So
yes.
let me get this straight. I'm being hunted by essentially like the perfect organism. I can barely see where I'm going, and I have to stop and do math.
You got it. That's just not fair.
It's a testament to the developers, I think. They wanted to keep the pressure on you, and they could have made it a lot more straightforward, just a straight run and hide, maybe a little bit of action. But throwing those puzzles at you,
Yeah.
it forces you to use a different part of your brain. It really makes it a test of your ingenuity and your resourcefulness.
And just when you think you're safe, just when you're like, okay, maybe I can catch my breath,
For 1 second.
bam! Working Joes.
Oh, yeah.
Coming at you, fresh from their latest attempt to, end you.
Of course. Of
Like the game saw you thinking about maybe, I don't know, taking a sip of water, and it's like, not today. It's like, nope, not going to happen. That escape, after everything you've just been through, it really is this heart-stopping scramble to get to the Isidora, and you're drained, you're terrified.
Oh, yeah.
But there's this glimmer of hope that you may have just found a moment of respite.
And remember, through all of this, Amanda is still trying to find Taylor and Marlowe.
She is, that's right.
Talk about a stressful work environment.
Oh yeah, just another day at the office.
Right. It's like the worst office party ever, but with, more face hugging.
A little more face hugging, yeah.
Yeah, it just makes you question how much one person can take.
That's a good point. And that's where things get really fascinating when you start to look at Amanda's story arc, which we'll get into after this.
So we left Amanda reaching the Anisadora after that, I don't know what to call it, other than just completely terrifying mission.
Stressful day at the office.
Right. But you mentioned something about Amanda's story arc before. What did you mean by that?
Yep.
Like, is there a hidden message about the dangers of space travel I somehow missed?
Well, not exactly, though I'm sure someone somewhere has probably written a thesis on that very topic.
Right.
But what I find really fascinating is how this mission, the descent, it's not just about, running from xenomorphs and dodging facehuggers.
Okay.
It actually mirrors Amanda's entire journey throughout the game.
Hold on. I think I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But maybe dial it back just a little bit, like, explain it to me like I'm a xenomorph who only understands eat and hide.
Okay, fair enough. So think about it, Amanda. She's constantly facing these impossible odds.
Oh.
She's having to rely on her cunning, her intelligence, her strength to survive these encounters. I mean, these are encounters that would make, the most hardened space marine pee their pants a little bit.
Yeah.
And this mission throws everything at her. It tests her limits, and in a way, I think you could argue it forces her to descend into the darkest parts of herself just to survive.
So when you say darkest parts, we're talking that primal instinct to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if I was in that situation, I'd probably be hissing at the walls by that point, hoping they'd take pity on me.
It's about what happens to a person when they're pushed to those extremes.
Yeah.
It really ties into the game's themes of fear, of isolation, the limits of what humans can withstand.
It's all there in one terrifying, experience. And don't forget about how they use the environment
Oh, yeah.
to make all of that worse.
Yeah.
We talked about the nest.
Right.
But even just those hallways, those corridors, the lights are always flickering. You always feel like something's watching you.
And you never feel safe.
It's all claustrophobic.
And that's intentional, that's alien. Isolation, at its best, it's a masterclass in using the environment to tell its story. Every little creak, every little sound cue, it adds to that tension. It makes it relentless.
Speaking of relentless, the notes that we got from the listener mention how this mission specifically kind of throws a wrench in the typical strategies that you might use.
Oh, for sure.
Something about you can't just rely on stealth anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, up to this point, you could get by with being cautious. You could, pick your moments. But Mission 14, it forces you to change. You have to adapt.
Okay.
You've got multiple xenomorphs, and their patrol patterns, they're not always predictable.
Yeah.
You got those face huggers just waiting for you to make one wrong move.
Yeah.
And then the working Joes, I mean, they are relentless. You have to
Yeah.
think on your feet, and you have to be ready to switch tactics in a heartbeat.
So it's less about finding the perfect hiding spot and more about being able to improvise on the fly.
That's it. Yeah, you have to use everything.
Wow.
Your tools, distractions, the environment, everything.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes this deadly dance.
Okay, I'm starting to see why our listener wanted to do this deep dive.
A lot.
But we keep talking about Amanda, we keep talking about her story.
Right.
How does this mission, how does all this chaos actually affect her character in the long run?
Well, remember, she's still trying to find out what happened to her mother. She's still clinging to that hope that she might find Taylor and Marlowe.
Right, they've been her motivation this whole time.
Exactly.
It's like looking for a decent cup of coffee on a space station.
Right?
You know, it's got to be here somewhere. You just got to get through all this other stuff first.
Exactly. And this mission, with everything that it throws at you, it really reinforces just how important all of this is to her.
Yeah.
It really makes you ask, how far is she willing to go? What lines is she willing to cross? Is there a line?
It's like the deeper she goes into Sevastopol, the more she gets sucked into this fight for survival. And you start to lose track of where the fear ends and where she begins.
That's a really good point. That internal struggle, that question of how much can one person withstand before they break,
Yeah.
it's reflected in the title of the mission itself, The Descent.
Oh, wow.
It works on multiple levels. It's literally her going deeper into the station,
Right.
but it's also her going deeper into herself.
Okay, chills, literal chills right now.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
Yeah, the developers, they knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
But then she reaches the Anesidora, still no closer to finding Taylor or Marlowe. It's like finally getting a break,
Yeah.
only to realize you're still stuck on the same sinking ship.
It's that feeling of, you're so close, but yet so far.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder what's going to happen next. Will she find the answers that she's looking for? Or is this just the beginning of a whole new nightmare for her?
You know, it's almost like you're right. Even knowing she's made it to the Anesidora, even knowing she's found a little bit of, I don't know if I want to call it safety,
Yeah.
but a little bit of a break in the action, it still feels like something's going to come out of the vents and grab her.
The other shoe's going to drop.
Yeah, exactly. That's a much better way to put it.
It's that pacing, though. It's that masterful control of pacing and tension, because you get those little breaks.
Right.
But it never really lets you relax. You're just as terrified when nothing's happening as when everything's happening.
It's like being home alone at night
Oh, yeah?
and you hear a noise. Logically, it's probably nothing.
Probably the house settling.
Exactly, but a part of you is like, but what if it's not?
What if it's the xenomorph?
Right, and in this game, it usually is,
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a xenomorph.
and it always gets you when you least expect it.
Always.
But that just makes me think about, we keep coming back to this idea of not just the physical threat,
Right.
but the mental, the psychological aspect.
The toll it takes on you.
By the time she reaches the Anesidora, I don't even know if I'd be able to form a coherent thought.
Most people would broken by that.
Oh, for sure.
They wouldn't be able to handle it.
So what is it that keeps her going?
I think it's that hope.
Okay.
It's that sliver of hope that she might find Taylor, that she might find Marlowe,
Right.
that she might escape this.
Yeah.
And it's what drives her, but it's also, it's a double-edged sword.
How so?
Because hope can also blind you.
Okay.
It can make you vulnerable.
So it's what keeps her going, but it could also be her downfall.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our look at Mission 14,
Yeah.
if you could only use one word to describe this, what would you say?
Transformative.
Okay, expand on that.
It's not just a mission. It's not just about, getting from point A to point B.
Right.
It's about what happens to Amanda along the way, how it changes her.
So the descent isn't just about going deeper into the station, it's about going deeper into Amanda's psyche.
Exactly. It's about what she has to do to survive, what she has to become.
And sometimes that's the scariest thing of all.
Absolutely. Sometimes the monsters we create within ourselves are far more terrifying than anything we could encounter out there.
I think that's a good place to stop, because now I'm just completely terrified.
As you should be.
Well, to our listener out there, good luck. You're gonna need it.
You've got this. I believe in you.
We'll see you next time as we take another deep dive into whatever terrifying topic you throw our way.
Okay, so are you ready for this? We're diving deep into alien isolation, specifically Mission 15. Um, it's called The Message, and let me tell you, this isn't just another one of those run and hide missions. This is where things get really interesting. Think like full-on alien vibes, that creeping dread. Yeah, you're gonna need more than just a flashlight for this one.
Yeah, this is where Amanda Ripley's story takes a turn. It gets like intensely personal. She's not just trying to survive anymore. She's actually, confronting this whole legacy thing with Ellen Ripley, her mom. Heavy stuff.
And speaking of heavy, the Inesadora, the ship in this mission, our source describes it as seriously creepy, even haunted. What do you think the game designers were going for there?
Well, picture this. You're Amanda, right? You just stepped into this wrecked ship, the Inesadora. It's dark, obviously, but even when you start turning on the power, it's like the little things that really get under your skin. Flickering lights, blood smeared on the walls. The ship, it's seen some things, you just feel it.
And knowing the alien universe, that's never a good sign. Yikes. But Amanda has to keep moving, right, to find out about her mom. So she has to activate the ship's systems, but that seems kind of counterintuitive in a horror game, don't you think? Shouldn't she be hiding?
Right, and that's the thing about Alien Isolation. It messes with those expectations. To get the Inesadora's lights on and the engines going, she has to use her motion tracker, right?
The motion track.
Every fan knows that thing's both a lifesaver and a death sentence at the same time. Yeah, it gives you information, but it also means sending out a signal. You're basically putting a spotlight on yourself. How would you feel knowing every time you're trying to figure out where you are, you might be leading something right to you?
Oh, man. See, that's a choice I don't envy. Information or instant vulnerability. No, thank you. I might just wander around blindfolded. But Amanda, she's brave. Way braver than me. Good thing, too, because that's who she runs into Marlowe, who's got Taylor. Remember him?
Yeah, and their confrontation, that's where the game's level design just shines. Because of the choices you have to make. Lighting up the ship, making noise. The tension just keeps building. It's like the game is saying, hey, darkness isn't always your friend. Sometimes it's the only thing hiding what's really out to get you.
Okay, now that is just chilling. So every step forward is like a step closer to a heart attack.
Yeah.
I wasn't kidding about that corner.
Right, and it's not just the ship, right? It's this whole search for her mother that's got a weigh on her.
Oh, absolutely. That's where things get, well, you said it before, that gut punch moment. Amanda finds a hidden message on the Inesadora. And get this, it's from Ellen Ripley.
No way, seriously?
Yeah.
From Ellen Ripley herself. Okay, hold on, what'd she say?
Imagine being Amanda in this moment. Decades after her mom disappears, all these years wondering. She finally has something, a connection. And the game doesn't spell it out for you. You live it right along with her. That's what makes it so powerful. This tiny bit of hope in this whole terrifying situation.
Yeah, I can see that hitting hard. Trying to survive this nightmare, then bam, a rush of emotion. Oh, and speaking of a rush, it doesn't let up there. Remember Taylor, the guy she saved from Marlowe?
Taylor? Yeah, he was... wait a minute, something happened with Taylor, didn't it? I can't remember.
Let's just say, he's not exactly who he seems. You start to think he's an ally, someone who gets it, But then...
Go on, you can't just drop that and leave me hanging. What happens?
He kills Marlowe, which at first you're like, okay, he's on her side. But then, bam, twist. He reveals he sabotaged the Inesadora, rigged the engines to blow.
Are you kidding me? So not only is there this alien hunting her, but now the whole ship's a ticking time bomb? That's just brutal.
Talk about adding insult to injury. But that's Alien Isolation, right? They know how to keep you on your toes just when you think you've got a handle on things. Wham! New problem.
And I thought I had it bad with the motion tracker. Talk about a no-win. Trapped with a killer alien and the whole place is about to blow. How does she even handle that?
Pure adrenaline at that point, right? The Inesadora starts to melt down, and the game just throws you into it. Bulkheads slamming shut, alarms, and you're just trying not to get blown up along with it.
But what about Taylor? He's just, left behind?
Yeah, it's rough. Amanda tries to, talk to him, but he's gone. She barely gets off the Inesadora before it explodes. Takes Taylor and all his secrets with it.
Wow. So she makes it through all that, everything, and she ends up right back where she started, no closer to finding her mother, and now she's got all this baggage from the Inesadora weighing her down.
And that's what Alien Isolation does so well. There are no easy answers, no happy endings, just survival. And sometimes what it costs to get there. Remember that source talking about exceptional storytelling? This is it.
It's like those stories that Even when they scare you, they stay with you, make you think, what would I do?
Exactly. That's what good horror does. Gets under your skin, makes you see things a little differently. It's not just the monster in the dark, right? It's the shadows we carry inside ourselves.
That's pretty deep. So after this deep dive into the message, it's obvious this mission, it's not just about surviving the xenomorph, is it? It's Amanda Ripley facing her fears and this legacy of her mom.
It reminds us that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create, and the most terrifying journeys. They're the ones that force us to face our past.
And sometimes the only way out is straight ahead to the next objective, which I guess is what we'll do right now. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those motion trackers handy, and remember, even in the darkest corners of space, you're never truly alone.
Ever just have one of those how did I get here moments, like dangling off a cliff or something? Or maybe face to face with like a really angry goose?
Yeah.
Okay, well now imagine that feeling, but you're in space, you're in a spacesuit outside a massive space station, and oh yeah, there's an alien on board that really wants to meet you.
Right.
That's Alien Isolation Mission 16. And that's what we're diving into today.
Definitely a bad day for Amanda Ripley.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a stack of articles here, even a podcast,
Oh, wow.
all breaking down this mission.
Nice.
So to set the scene for anyone who hasn't breezed this part of the game, Amanda's outside Sevastopol station, which is like this giant city in space,
Huge.
and it's got a big alien problem.
Yeah, you could say that again.
And Amanda's just desperate to get in contact with anyone.
Anyone at all.
And this is where the game really gets you, because you're surrounded by stars and planets, this incredible view,
Beautiful.
but you're also totally vulnerable, stuck in this clunky suit with your oxygen ticking down.
It's that contrast that makes it so effective.
Right. You got the awe of space, but then this intense claustrophobia too.
Exactly. And you're completely alone, exposed, makes the danger feel so much more real.
It's like they took everything scary about space and then just threw in a xenomorph for fun.
Just to up the stakes.
So you're scrambling to activate this antenna. Every second feels like an hour.
Oh, I bet.
And then contact,
That's failing.
you get Captain Verlaine on the Torrens. That's the ship that could be her only way out.
Right. Her ticket out of there.
And for a second, there's hope. Remember that feeling when you first make contact.
Oh, absolutely. Such a relief after all that tension being completely cut off.
Yeah.
Just that human contact.
But this is alien isolation.
Right. Can't be easy.
It never is. Just when you think things might actually go Amanda's way, she sees something truly awful.
And we're not talking about some space junk here. She sees the xenomorph
Up close and personal.
attacking these survivors.
Yeah.
And it's not just any encounter either. This one's personal. Remember Ricardo, the comm specialist.
Oh, man, Ricardo. He was there for so much of the game.
Yeah, and this is where we lose him. The game does not hold back on the xenomorph just being brutal.
Brutal.
And watching him go like that,
Oh.
it's rough. It's a punch to the gut,
Yeah.
you know? And it really shows how high the stakes are for Amanda, how fast things can change.
It's heartbreaking, but it also kind of lights a fire, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about escaping anymore. It's about survival honoring Ricardo. And that's where this mission gets even more intense. So you're Amanda. You've seen something terrifying, and now you're running through the station trying not to get caught.
It's a masterclass in suspense.
The sources all say that.
They're not wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not even just jump scares, though there are plenty of those.
Right.
It's the atmosphere, the sound design, the levels. Everything is designed to keep you on edge.
Yeah, those burning corridors.
Like every little sound is amplified.
Yeah.
You know, the creaking metal, the steam escaping, it makes you feel so vulnerable.
And then there's that sound, the motion tracker.
The worst.
I know it's bad news the second you hear it. Is there any other game that gets in your head like that?
It's such a good use of sound because you need it to know where the alien is. But every time it beeps, you're like, nope, not today.
It's both information and anxiety all in one little beep.
Totally. And the sources talk about how much more effective that is than other games where you see the monster all the time.
Yeah, when you don't know, it's so much worse.
The unknown is terrifying.
And the alien isn't predictable either. Like, it's not just following a script.
No, it feels like it's really hunting you.
That's what makes it so scary, even when you replay it.
Exactly. You're never sure what it's going to do next. Keeps you on your toes.
Totally. And it makes you think strategically, too, using the environment to your advantage.
Way more immersive than just shooting everything.
Right. It's like that classic horror movie thing, don't make a sound.
Except every footstep could be giving you away.
Let's talk about pressure. Anyway, so Amanda finally gets to the stocking bay.
Giant spaceship garage, basically.
Exactly. And she's trying to reach the Torrens. But of course,
Over easy.
there's always a catch. The sources mention this one elevator.
Oh no, what about it?
Let's just say it's not exactly a smooth ride.
How did I end up here feeling?
Big time. You're so close to escaping to safety. But then the game throws one last thing at you. It's like that final chase scene in a horror movie.
You know something bad is coming, but you have to keep going.
You have to. And that's what makes Mission 16 so good. It's that desperation, that will to survive.
It's really powerful. And one of the sources said it's not even just about surviving the alien encounters.
It's about Amanda and how resilient she is.
Her determination to get off that station.
Yeah.
Like, think about everything she's been through.
It's inspiring.
Totally. It shows her character. And remember, this is a woman who's still dealing with what happened to her mother on the Nostromo.
And we see that throughout the game.
But she keeps fighting. She faces her fears.
That's something we can all learn from, right?
Yeah. Even when things are impossible,
Yeah.
terrifying, we can find a way to keep going, even if we're not facing down aliens.
Most of us aren't.
True.
Yeah.
But the message is still there. We all face challenges, things that feel impossible. But Amanda shows us we can find that strength.
It's really incredible. So to wrap things up, Amanda's still fighting to survive, racing toward that escape ship, the Torrens.
Huge cliffhanger. Will she make it? Will she finally be safe?
Well, no spoilers.
Right,
Of
exactly.
course, we'll leave that for everyone to discover themselves, but the way it ends, it just leaves you wanting more.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily, we have more missions to explore, more deep dives to come.
The fun's not over yet.
It's not. But before we move on, I wanted to go back to these sources you found, because I was really interested in all the different angles they took.
Definitely. It wasn't just this happened, then this happened. It was really digging into what makes this mission so effective.
Right. Like one article we have really went into detail about that opening spacewalk.
Oh, yeah. Even though it's short, it sets up the whole feeling.
Exactly. You get that wow moment with the view of space.
It's beautiful.
And then bam! You're reminded you're stuck in this suit dependent on it for air.
Alone? Vulnerable? That's the brilliance of it.
For sure. And then, of course, just when you think you're safe, back to the nightmare of Sevastopol Station.
Can catch a break.
And speaking of not catching a break, we can't forget about Ricardo.
Yeah.
One of the podcasts had a whole thing about his death scene, how that hits the player emotionally.
Yeah, they said it was a turning point. Not just for Amanda, but for the whole game. That's when the xenomorph becomes really real.
Totally. Before that, you're hiding, avoiding it. But when you see what happens to him, it changes things.
the stakes are higher, you know, anyone could be next.
Exactly. And that feeling stays with you through the whole mission.
That sense of being hunted.
The level design, the
Great.
sound, and of course that motion tracker, always there.
Just a masterpiece of suspense.
It really is.
Yeah.
And one article even interviewed one of the sound designers.
No way.
They talked about how they use sound to make you feel uneasy, like you're always being watched.
Which you are.
Right. It's like they reached into our brains and found out exactly what scares us.
They did a pretty good job of it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from all of this?
You know, I think it's that good games aren't just about the graphics or the action. It's about the experience. An Alien. Isolation Mission 16, it just nails it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So next time you're playing a game, really take a second to think about how it makes you feel.
Appreciate the art of it all.
Exactly. You might be surprised how much work goes into creating those feelings. Until next time, keep exploring.
Okay, so you wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty of Sevastopol Station. Well, strap in, because today we're doing a deep dive based on your request. We're talking Mission 17, Power Struggle, from Alien. Isolation.
Oh, good one. That's a real nail-biter.
Right. I mean, anyone who's played Isolation knows it's a tense game. But even for Isolation, this mission...
It throws you right in the deep end, doesn't it?
Totally. Our source picks up with Amanda already, you know, in a bad spot, trying to reach that space flight terminal. her only hope of getting off Sevastopol.
Which, of course, the game makes as difficult as possible.
Because, of course,
Yeah.
transit system's down, so it's not like she could just, hop on a train?
Not unless she wants to be riding solo with a xenomorph conductor. But that's isolation for you. It's all about using your head as much as anything else.
Exactly. This isn't some action movie where you can just shoot your way out. You gotta improvise, scavenge for supplies. Speaking of, our source specifically mentioned the ion torch being surprisingly important in this mission.
Oh, for sure. It's not just about burning your way through those facehugger nests.
Right, they were saying it's actually used to open certain pathways, almost like it's a key as much as a weapon.
Clever, isn't it? Makes you really think about each item you find, how it could be useful in ways you wouldn't expect. Suddenly, that hunk of junk in your inventory feels like a lifeline, and it ramps up the tension, too.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of tension, can we talk about the station itself for a sec? Our source made it sound like Sevastopol is practically designed to mess with your head.
It is. The blocked paths, the detours, you're constantly getting turned around. It's like the station itself is trying to kill you as much as that alien is. Brilliant environmental storytelling, I think.
You're not kidding. Every corner you turn, every vent you pass, you're just waiting for something to jump out.
You're never truly safe. That's what makes it so effective.
And that brings us to another vital tool our source called out, the motion tracker. But in this mission, it's more than just about keeping tabs on the alien, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's your lifeline in the maze. That is Sevastopol.
You literally wouldn't know which way to go half the time without it.
Exactly. But here's the thing. That reliance, that need to constantly check it, that's where the game gets you.
Because you're vulnerable while you're fiddling with it.
Yeah. Totally. You're standing still, listening, and hoping you don't hear that telltale blip, blip, blip. That means you're about to have a very bad day. Talk about a mini horror movie in itself every time you flip that thing open.
It's like, you know that feeling when you're home alone and you think you hear a noise, so you have to, check the locks and everything?
Yeah, but dial it up to 11.
Right. And that's with, regular threats.
Oh.
In Mission 17, our source was talking about Amanda having to do these tasks, finding key cards, restarting a generator. Normal stuff, but...
Normal stuff turned terrifying. Context is everything, right? Those everyday actions suddenly become life or death when a xenomorph could be around any corner.
And you're racing against time, because who knows when that thing's gonna, decide to go for a stroll in your ventilation shaft.
Speaking of which, vents, elevators. Our source called those out as being particularly important in this mission. What do you think, just for variety?
Well, they DO add to the whole creepy atmosphere, right? Like those vents. Yeah. Talk about a classic horror movie trope.
For sure. But I think it goes deeper than that. Thematically, vents and elevators play into that feeling of vulnerability, that alien.
Isolation is so good at creating. Vents represent the unknown. Anything could be hiding in there.
Yeah.
And elevators.
You're trapped. If that door opens and the alien is standing there, game over, man.
Exactly. You're at the mercy of the station systems, which, let's be honest, are about as reliable as a chocolate teapot at this point.
And then, just when Amanda reaches what seems like a turning point, the tow platform where the Torrens, her potential escape ship, is supposed to dock.
Our source cuts out. Talk about a cliffhanger. Right. It's like, wait, what happens next? I guess we'll have to wait for the next episode to find out how she actually makes it out of that mess.
Assuming she does.
Don't say that. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Makes you wonder, playing through that mission, how many times did you have those almost didn't make it moments?
I'm sure plenty. That's what this game does so well. It keeps you right on the edge of your seat.
For sure. Thinking back on Mission 17, were you the type who meticulously searched every single room?
Oh, had to, right? Couldn't risk missing a med kit or some ammo. Never know when you might need it.
Especially with those resources being so scarce.
Exactly. But then again, spending too long scavenging. Ooh.
That's how you become xenomorph dinner.
Precisely. So it's a constant balancing act. Risk versus reward. Do you take your chances in the shadows?
Or you become a speedrunner and just pray you don't trip an alarm.
Speaking of shadows, bet you found yourself holding your breath a lot, right?
Oh, all the time.
Okay.
Especially in those vents. Every little creak, every groan of the station. Yeah. You're just waiting for that telltale hiss.
The sound design in this game is phenomenal.
Absolutely. It really gets under your skin. So even though our source leaves us hanging, right there on the platform, not knowing if Amanda actually makes it onto the Torrens.
It's the perfect cliffhanger. Leaves you wanting more, just like the game itself.
And I think that's what we really wanted to get across in this deep dive. Mission 17, it's more than just a mission, right? It's alien. Isolation distilled into its purest, most terrifying form.
Resourcefulness, stealth, and that constant gnawing tension.
You're never truly safe, and every choice you make could be your last. But hey, that's what makes it so compelling, right? So, we want to hear from you. What were your most intense Mission 17 moments? Those close calls, the times you barely escaped with your life. Share your stories in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. All right, listeners, strap yourselves in, because we're diving headfirst into the belly of the beast with this one.
Oh, are we talking Alien? Isolation?
You know it. Mission 18. Desperate measures. Even the title, right, sends shivers down my spine.
Yeah, it does have a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
You're telling me, okay, so picture this. Stranded on a space station, falling apart at the seams, and a xenomorph, just casually stalking you through the corridors.
It's another Tuesday, right?
Pretty much sums up Amanda Ripley's life, unfortunately. But seriously, what makes this mission, Mission 18, so pivotal in her story? And for those brave enough to step into her shoes, what should they be ready for?
Well, I think what's really interesting here is how Mission 18 kind of changes the game for Amanda. Up until this point, it's mostly been about reacting to the terror, just trying to stay one step ahead of the alien. But now she's got to flip the script. She has to take control. And you see that reflected in the mission objectives.
Okay, I'm seeing storing power, initiating docking procedures.
Yeah.
Sounds like standard sci-fi stuff, right?
Sure, on the surface, but look a little deeper.
Okay, I'm game. Walk me through it.
All right, so power. Think about it. Lifeblood of any space station, especially one as, well, let's say, delicate as Sevastopol. Restoring it isn't just about flicking a switch for Amanda, it's about grabbing a tiny little bit of control back from this insane situation.
Okay, I can see that, yeah.
And then there's the docking procedure. That little detail hints at a way out, It's like a tiny beacon of hope in this whole disaster. The game does a really good job using those seemingly basic objectives to ratchet up the tension. It makes your actions feel like they actually matter.
It's like the difference between, I don't know, hiding in the basement during a tornado and actually trying to, steer the thing away from your house.
Exactly.
Speaking of tools,
Well,
looks like Amanda's got her trusty security access tuner and motion tracker for this little adventure. Classic alien gear.
two sides of the same coin, those gadgets are. The tuner is all about that brain-bending puzzle aspect. Alien. Isolation nails, right? Deciphering systems, outsmarting the station itself. But that motion tracker, pure nightmare fuel. It's not just about knowing the alien's close by. It's the waiting, the anticipation. Every blip, every wave on that screen just cranks the tension up another notch.
I can practically hear that pulsing sound just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Amanda armed with her gadgets, but it looks like she's also going to be getting her hands dirty with some heavy machinery, am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Initializing a docking clamp, extending something called a personnel umbilical, which just sounds terrifying. Any of this even remotely possible in a real-world space station, asking for a friend who may or may not be terrified of ending up like Amanda.
Let's just say the game takes some, shall we say, creative liberties. Docking clamps, those are real. Absolutely essential, connecting spacecraft, moving cargo, but a personnel umbilical.
Yeah, that's the one that threw me.
Bit more on the fictional side, probably their way of representing those, pressurized walkways or tunnels you see in sci-fi movies used to get from one ship to another.
Ah, okay, I get it.
In reality, docking procedures, all about the equipment and cargo, no one's strolling through space for the fun of it.
So, less casual spacewalk, more mad dash through a potential death trap. Sounds about right for Alien. Isolation.
You got it. It's about grounding the scary stuff in just enough reality to make it hit even harder.
And speaking of scary stuff, things are about to take a turn for Amanda. Because she's just stumbled upon an alien nest.
Oh boy, that's not good.
And you know what that means, right?
Things are about to get messy. Very messy.
Understatement of the year. But seriously, what's the big deal with an alien nest? Why is it such a terrifying setting, both in the game and, just thinking about it in real life?
Think about it. What are nests? They're cramped, claustrophobic, full of weird passages, and who knows what else. It plays on that primal fear we all have, right? Of being trapped in the dark, surrounded by things we don't understand.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm already getting chills. But it's also a really smart move from a game design perspective, wouldn't you say?
You're right. Instead of giving you these
big open corridors where you could, theoretically outrun the alien, the nest forces you to confront your fears head on.
Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
Exactly. It's environmental storytelling at its finest.
So we've got Amanda stuck in this horrifying alien nest, right? Tensions thicker than space station atmosphere. What you gonna do?
Time for a daring escape, it seems like.
That's what I like to hear. According to our intel, we're talking transit car tracks, maintenance offices. Sounds pretty intense.
You know how there's something about industrial environments that's just inherently creepy?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like the developers took that feeling, the echoing metal, flickering lights, and dialed it up to 11.
And then there's the elevator shaft. It's like a horror movie staple at this point.
Right.
But throw in a xenomorph and, well, that's a whole new level of nope.
Right. Imagine. You're Amanda, crammed into this metal box, plunging into the depths of the station. The only light is flickering, casting these creepy shadows everywhere. And every little sound, every groan of the machinery could be the alien getting closer.
My heart rate just went up just imagining that. It's crazy how much the sound design can make or break a horror game, isn't it?
For sure. It's everything.
So we've got Amanda navigating these transit car tracks, ducking through maintenance offices. It's like she's using the station itself to try to escape.
Exactly. Remember those transit tracks we were talking about earlier? Those weren't built for people.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
They were meant for cargo equipment. Maybe the occasional unfortunate soul who got on the wrong side of the company.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So Amanda's basically turning the station's guts into her personal escape route.
Pretty much. Sneaking through service tunnels, maybe even hitching a ride on a cargo transport or two. It's like the whole station's her terrifying playground now.
That's one way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I kind of love that, that she's using everything at her disposal.
Totally. It's that classic alien isolation thing, using your environment, your wits. Because of brute force. Yeah, I'm not going to cut it against a xenomorph.
No kidding. Speaking of which, what's the deal with this whole elevator shaft escape? Does she just hit the down button and hope for the best?
Not quite. This is where the game's environmental storytelling really shines. We don't know exactly what Amanda has to do, but knowing this game...
Oh, it's not going to be easy.
Exactly. She's going to have to think on her feet. Maybe she needs to bypass the security lock, reroute some power, or even create a distraction.
Distract a xenomorph. That's like trying to distract a black hole.
And yet, that's the kind of choice alien isolation throws at you. Risk it all on a long shot. Or, well, you know the alternative.
Not great options either way.
But hey, that's survival horror for you, right?
Yeah.
So Amanda, being the total badass that she is, manages to pull through somehow.
She always does.
This escape sequence is really the climax of everything we've been talking about,
Oh, I bet. Just picturing it, you're frantically trying to get those release mechanisms primed. That motion tracker is screaming at you. Talk about a nail biter.
You're telling me.
So she gets to the elevator shaft, makes this harrowing escape. But just when you think Amanda can finally breathe a sigh of relief, the mission throws a curveball.
Oh yeah, talks about leaving you hanging.
A cutscene ending, huh? Classic Alien. Isolation. But I'm guessing there's more to it than just a cheap thrill, right?
It's like, they want to keep you in suspense, but it's also this really clever way to mess with your head a little.
Okay, I'm listening. How so?
Well, think about it. The mission ends, but not really. Amanda's safe for now, but there's this lingering feeling that it's not over. It's like, how sometimes the thought of something is scarier than the thing itself?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
It's like that. They're planting these seeds of doubt, making you wonder what's coming next.
Sneaky. But effective. I can see that.
And it makes you think about Amanda's journey so far. She's come a long way from that scared engineer back in Mission 1. She's faced down this, unstoppable killing machine, used her brains and guts to survive, and literally blown her way out of a dying space station. That's got to do something to a person, right?
No kidding. If that doesn't change you, I don't know what will.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder, who is Amanda at this point? What's going through her head after all she's been through?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
We've been so caught up in the mechanics of it all, the objectives, the scares, that we haven't really stopped to think about the toll it's taking on her.
Right. It's easy to forget that she's not some kind of superhero. She's just an ordinary person thrust into this extraordinary and totally messed up situation.
And yet she's still going.
Exactly.
And that's what makes Alien Isolation so brilliant. It's not just about jump scares and atmosphere, though it's got that in spades. It's about the human element. It's about resilience, about staring down your worst fears and finding a way to keep moving forward.
I've never thought about it like that before, but it's so true. It's what makes it stick with you long after you put the controller down, you know?
100%. It's
Yeah.
what elevates it from a great game to a truly unforgettable experience.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've just about reached the end of our deep dive into Alien, Isolation's Mission 18.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We talked objectives, we got a little technical with the whole docking procedure thing, and we even dove into the psychology of being hunted by a xenomorph.
Fun times. It's amazing what you can learn from just one mission, right? It's like a microcosm of the whole game.
Absolutely.
Huh.
But most importantly, I think we all gained a newfound appreciation for Amanda Ripley.
What a legend.
She's proof that even in the darkest corners of space, even when faced with the most terrifying creatures imaginable, the human spirit can endure. And that's a powerful message, no matter what galaxy you're from.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But before we sign off, we want to hear from you. What do you think awaits Amanda on the other side of that cutscene? Hit us up in the comments. Let us know your theories, your fears, your wildest predictions. This deep dive may be over, but the conversation is far from finished. Until next time, stay curious and try not to let any xenomorphs into your air vents. All right, let's dive into something that's been bugging me. You know, that Alien Isolation ending.
Mission 19. Yeah, the Torrens. It's a doozy. Gets under your skin even after the game ends.
Totally. We're talking post-Sevastopol, right?
Yeah.
Like you've survived pure chaos, and then, bam, whole different kind of tension hits you.
It's the quiet, I think. You're so used to the constant dread, the clanging, the alien breathing down your neck. Suddenly you're on this seemingly deserted ship. Eerie.
Big time. We're here to unpack this, right?
Okay.
So for those who've been there, picture this. You're heading to the bridge. Expectation is you'll find Captain Verlaine some sense of normalcy, yeah.
Which the game deliberately makes you anticipate. You're funneled through the Torrens, almost herded towards that final encounter.
And let's be real, that xenomorph reveal, masterclass in cinematic horror, the slow pan, those button prompts that make you part of it, even though you're powerless.
Oh, absolutely. You said it's cinematic. It's like something out of the movies, but you're living it. That creeping dread as it circles Amanda, the sound design, genius.
Chills every time. But
Yeah.
then comes the airlock, right? And that's where things
Yeah,
get
but-
really interesting, or confusing, or both.
It's intentionally vague, right? Like, on the face of it, classic bad ending. Torrens overrun, crew dead, Amanda spaced. Finality.
Right, but then, those lights. Out in the void. What's a player to think? Rescue. Hallucination. Something else entirely.
I think that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Throughout the game, Amanda's been pushed to her absolute limit. Sensory overload, paranoia, the works.
And the audio logs, don't forget those messed up messages, flickering lights, her own thoughts getting jumbled. Not exactly a picture of perfect mental health.
Precisely. Which makes you wonder, was that xenomorph encounter ever really happening on the Torrens? Or was it all in her head a manifestation of that trauma?
Whoa, okay. See, I never even considered that on my first playthrough. So if we're saying the xenomorph is a figment of Amanda's breakdown, does that make being found the good ending? Rescue, Verlaine's alive, the crew's safe, but Amanda's mind is irrevocably scarred, which, let's face it, is maybe scarier. Surviving Sevastopol only to find the real monster followed you home, inside your head. No escaping that. Heavy stuff, man. So this isn't just about a jump scare or two. This is psychological horror at its finest. That lingering dread, the ambiguity. Classic Alien when you think about it.
Couldn't agree more. It's what makes isolation so damn effective. It's the fear of the unknown, the what-ifs that stay with you.
Makes you question everything, right? What's real, what's in your head, and which is scarier in the end. So to our listeners out there, dear Amanda, which ending haunts you more?
All right, imagine this. You're trapped on the Nostromo, that creepy spaceship from Alien.
Oh, I can already feel the dread.
Right. But here's the kicker. You're not just watching Ripley and the crew. You are the crew.
You're thrown right into the heart of it.
Exactly. And that, my friends, is the chilling premise of Crew Expendable, a DLC for the game Alien: Isolation.
We're talking about stepping into the shoes of Ripley, Dallas, Parker during those iconic moments from the film.
And let me tell you, it's not for the faint of heart.
Not at all. This DLC, it's not just a cheap reskin. It really captures the essence of the film, like the atmosphere.
Oh man, the atmosphere.
They recreated the Nostromo down to the last detail. Those clunky control panels, the flickering lights in the corridors.
It's crazy how immersive it is. I felt like I could practically smell the stale coffee in the mess hall.
Right. And that's what makes it so effective. You're not just playing a game, you're living this desperate struggle for survival.
Absolutely. And speaking of struggling for survival, you get to choose who you want to face that struggle as: Ripley, Dallas, or Parker. Each character, they bring their own strength to the table, which, believe me, you're going to need every advantage you can get.
Oh, yeah. Each character really changes how you approach situations. Like, if you're playing as Ripley, you might rely more on your wits and scavenging, maybe setting some traps, you know.
Resourceful Ripley. Now, if you're playing as Dallas, who knows the ship inside and out?
You might try to use that knowledge to your advantage, maybe try to lead the alien into a trap or seal off areas.
So strategic. And it makes you wonder, how would you react under that kind of pressure? It's easy to judge the characters' choices in the film.
But when you're in their shoes, with that constant fear gnawing at you,
Right. You realize that every decision could be your last. Talk about intense. And let's not forget, the core gameplay of Alien: Isolation is still there.
absolutely, the stealth, the strategy, that heart-pounding tension of knowing the alien could be right around the corner,
Yeah.
it's all there.
You can't just go in guns blazing. Well, I mean, you could try.
It wouldn't end well. This DLC forces you to think tactically, use your environment, and for heaven's sake, be quiet.
Because that alien AI, it's no joke. It learns, it adapts, it will hunt you down. So every encounter is this adrenaline-fueled puzzle, you know.
And you're trying to solve it with a knot in your stomach the whole time. What really gets me about this DLC is how it makes you reevaluate the film.
You mean knowing the story doesn't make it any less scary?
Yeah. If anything, it's scarier because now you're experiencing it firsthand. You're making the decisions, feeling the weight of every choice.
And it really makes you think, would I have done anything differently? It's a whole new level of immersion.
Definitely.
So if you're a fan of the Alien franchise, I can't recommend Crew Expendable enough. It's a terrifying, thrilling, and surprisingly thought-provoking way to revisit that iconic story.
Even if you're new to the franchise, this DLC is a fantastic example of how to create a truly suspenseful and immersive horror experience.
It's a testament to how powerful games can be when it comes to putting you right in the middle of the action, or should I say, terror. So, we've talked about how Crew Expendable puts you in the shoes of the Nostromo crew, right? But here's something to chew on. Do you think experiencing the story as a game changes how we understand those characters' actions? Did playing this DLC make you sympathize with them more, or maybe judge them differently? It's a question that sticks with you long after the game is over. And that, my friends, is the mark of a truly impactful experience.
Okay, so uh, have you ever pictured yourself in Ripley's shoes? You know, alone on that ship, the Nostromo, with that alien just lurking around every corner?
Oh, man.
Well, that's what we're diving into. It's called Last Survivor, and it's downloadable content for Alien: Isolation. It puts you right there in those final terrifying moments of the movie.
Oh.
I'm going to break it all down, like how this game just gets under your skin.
You know, it's amazing to me they didn't just recreate the story, you know? It's like they rebuilt the entire Nostromo, every detail, the flickering lights, even that 70s sci-fi vibe.
Right.
It's creepy and cool all at the same time.
It's so true. Like, you're walking down the same hallways, messing with the same computers.
Yeah.
It all comes rushing back, all that fear from the movie.
Ex-
Was it always that scary, or did the game somehow make it even more intense.
You know, I think it's the design. It's so clever. It's playing with those core memories we have from Alien, that crapped, hunted feeling, even though you're on a spaceship. It's amplified because of how well they recreated the Nostromo.
They totally nailed the atmosphere, but how is the gameplay? Is it all just hiding and hoping for the best?
Oh, not even close. They really up the stakes because you're on a timer. Remember, the Nostromo is about to blow, so you're constantly racing the clock to launch that escape pod. Every decision is high pressure.
Talk about stress.
Yeah, every single second matters.
So it's like a ticking time bomb. You really feel the weight of every choice. Do you stop and look for supplies, knowing the alien might be right around the corner? Or do you just run for it and risk running straight into trouble?
Yeah.
And come on, let's be real. It wouldn't be Alien if you weren't just terrified the whole time.
Right?
You can't just like pull out a giant gun and start blasting.
Oh, absolutely not. No,
You'd think so.
it's like they say, right? It's a game of cat and mouse, but the alien, it's one sneaky cat.
Yeah.
But you do have one advantage, and it's straight out of the film. You get the motion tracker,
Oh, okay.
just like Ripley.
So you can, see where the alien is?
Well, kind of. You can get an idea at least, but, you know.
So it's helpful but risky. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
every time you use it, it's like you're holding your breath, right? You're sending out that signal.
Because it could be right there.
That's it, the signal. It's the only way to see, but it can also give you away. The alien might hear it.
Man, every hallway must feel like a nightmare.
That's the game. You want to move, but every step could be your last. Do you risk it? Or do you use the tracker and hope for the best?
Impossible. You've got to choose.
Yeah,
But neither one's a good option.
exactly. And get this, the game, it throws in these scenarios ripped straight from the movie. Remember when Ripley tries to reset the self-destruct sequence?
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna be right there doing it with her, clock ticking away, the alien right on your tail, probably.
They don't make it easy on you, huh?
Nope. But that's what makes it feel so good when you actually outsmart the alien, even if it's just by a little bit, you know? Because, you know, it wasn't just reflexes, it was you thinking, strategizing.
But you earned it.
Exactly.
It's like those aha moments, right?
Right.
But way more intense.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that aha moment,
Yeah, that's it. The stakes, they couldn't be higher.
yeah, you're not just watching Ripley anymore. You are Ripley. Making those crazy decisions when there's no good answer. Have you ever thought about that?
And that's what makes Last Survivor more than a game, you know? It makes you really feel what Ripley went through, all that courage. It's insane. Can you imagine facing that thing, not knowing if you'd even make it out alive?
It's wild.
Just shows how strong the story is, how it can affect you in a totally different way.
You know, it's one thing to watch Ripley crawl through those vents.
Yeah.
But actually being the one crawling with that thing maybe right behind you, that's a whole other level.
Oh, for sure. And the sound, don't even get me started on the sound design. It's incredible.
It's got to be good, right?
Every little sound, the Nostromo creaking, that breathing, that hissing, you never know. It could be the alien. It just keeps you on edge the whole time.
It's like they took everything scary from the movie
Yeah.
and made it something you feel.
They nailed it.
Okay, so for our listener who's out there, clearly a big Alien fan, someone who loves those intense, you are their experiences. What's the final word on Last Survivor? Should they play it?
If you've ever wondered if you have the guts, the brains, to get off the Nostromo alive, to walk in Ripley's shoes, to make those choices, then you have to play this.
No question.
It's like a love letter to the film, a masterclass in suspense, and it reminds you the scariest things are the ones you can't even see.
It's a total test, a race against the clock, and a chance to be a part of the Alien story, even write your own ending.
Right.
And hey, who knows? Maybe you're tougher than you think.
Maybe.
But if that Nostromo starts shaking, I'm taking Ripley's advice.
Mm-hmm.
Run to that escape pod.
Me too.